Chapter 590. Woof, woof, roar. Awoo! As soon as he reached the deck, he heard the dog's spirit baring its teeth and growling, as if it was protesting angrily at someone's offense. Moreover, a gust of wind blew in his face, carrying with it a strong airflow. Qin Hao simply swept his arm and dissipated the airflow. His physical body was extremely strong. Then, he looked in the direction that the dog spirit was looking at. He saw another boat flying slowly 1,000 meters in front of the treasure ship. And this boat was not bad at all. It was flowing with light and vibrant colors, and its hull was even larger than Qin Hao's treasure ship that was 50 meters long. It was not difficult to tell from its size that the other party's ship was of a higher grade than Ouyang Hong's ship. It was also because the other party's size was too large that when it passed by Qin Hao's treasure ship, it produced a strong airflow and caused the ship to tilt. After all, Qin Hao's ship was severely damaged. "Who are they?" Aku said angrily. Qin Hao stared ahead and frowned in thought. It was not difficult to tell that the other party deliberately wanted to make things difficult for Qin Hao. They despised Qin Hao's ship for being too shabby, so they deliberately approached and came to cause trouble. However, there was a no-fly array in the wasteland, and Qin Hao had fought many fierce battles along the way. On the other hand, the other party swaggered through the air and the hull was quite clean. It could be seen that it was not obstructed by the three aristocratic families at all. The three aristocratic families did not dare to attack the boat. "No matter who it is, it's their bad luck to encounter me." Qin Hao's eyes darkened as he secretly circulated his primordial qi. Sparks of the red lotus fire flickered on his body as he prepared for battle. "What are you trying to do? Are you going to steal their ship?" Aku asked, somewhat surprised. What if Qin Hao rashly fought with someone and attracted the attention of the three aristocratic families? "Based on the state of our boat, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to fly out of the wasteland. Perhaps in the next moment it will disintegrate and explode. If they are willing to cooperate, I won't hurt them." Qin Hao looked at Aku. He used his eyes to tell the other party that he only wanted to borrow the other party's boat to give him a ride. Of course, that was if the other party was unwilling to cooperate. Qin Hao didn't mind killing and seizing the ship. Who asked them to come here looking for trouble? This world had always respected martial arts. In the past, Qin Hao had also been oppressed by others. What's more, the ship in front had deliberately caused trouble, so Qin Hao didn't feel guilty at all. "I'll listen to you." Aku nodded in agreement. Indeed, his ship was on the verge of collapse, and it was also a heaven-sent opportunity. He didn't know which idiot had eyes but couldn't see, running an even more powerful ship in front of Qin Hao to behave atrociously. Ever since Qin Yun's accident, Qin Hao's temperament had become even colder. Aku was also feeling very depressed because of the death of the gray-robed elder. Therefore, they never left anyone alive along the way. As long as they encountered people from the three aristocratic families, they would kill them all. "Brother dog." Having made up his mind, Qin Hao ordered, "Roar." The dog's spirit let out a low roar, as if it was very unhappy with the other party, and spread out its huge wings. The dog spirit had swallowed a large number of beast cores, including those of several profound holy beasts and the other three heavenly holy beasts in the four divine beasts formation. At this moment, it had broken through to the beast king level. It was just a little bit away from becoming a beast king, which was also a king dog spirit. Therefore, its current flying speed was faster than Qin Hao and Aku's. Immediately, Qin Hao and Aku rode on the dog spirit's broad back like a lion. "Chase!" Qin Hao pointed ahead. Swoosh! The dog spirit leaped, carrying the two of them into the sky. If the ship at full speed, its speed would definitely be much faster than Qin Hao's ship. However, the person controlling it didn't seem to care about speed at the moment, and was leisurely moving forward. This short distance of a few thousand meters was just a leap for the dog spirit. It didn't even need to flap its wings. It leaped in an arc and landed steadily on the other party's deck. At this moment, inside this noble ship, Yi Ziq and two young men were drinking and having fun. Their cheeks were red, and they were drunk. There's wine today, let's get drunk today. Brother Wei, cheers, cheers. A young man with slippers on his face raised his wine cup to the other side, his breath reeking of alcohol. I hope you don't wake up from your drunken stupor. Ha ha. Brother Wei, drink with me. The other young man with a gored face raised his head and drank the wine, laughing loudly. These two people were the assassins that Murong Zijuan had sent from Daliao to the Jiang country. Their goal was to kill Qin Hao. The young man with slippers on his face was called Wei Xiaobao, and he was at the 6th level of the profound holy realm. The young man with a gored face was called Wei Debao, and he was at the 7th level of the profound holy realm. Although the two of them weren't Murong Zijuan's best lackeys, they were still at the 7th level of the profound holy realm. However, they had the qualifications to be proud of having reached the high stage of the profound holy realm at such a young age. Looking at the entire Western Liang, the strength of these two young lackeys was enough to crush Duguji and Duguyu. Not to mention Tian Buguang. 2 months ago, Tian Buguang was just a 5-star mortal saint, and he had fought Qin Hao to the death. Therefore, in the eyes of Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao, the younger generation of Western Liang was all trash, and useless. They could crush a bunch of them with just a finger. From the two of them, it could be seen that the younger generation of the northern border was indeed much stronger than the younger generation of Western Liang. After all, Western Liang was the most barren place in the entire divine wasteland continent. It was like a small village. As for Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao, they were talents from big cities. Logically speaking, they should have flown to the former Jiang country half a month ago. However, in their eyes, Qin Hao was a big piece of trash. Therefore, they didn't take Qin Hao seriously at all. They were just here for a vacation and to kill Qin Hao while they were at it. Therefore, they didn't rush along the way. Along the way, they even harmed the daughters of many city lords, as well as the talented young ladies of some big families. They were the subordinates of the crown prince of the northern border's great Yen, and their status was incomparably noble. Who would dare to challenge them? Even if they hated them to the extreme, the others could only swallow their anger. Even though they had arrived in the wasteland at the moment when the three great families were enraged, no one dared to stop them. This was because the royal flag of the northern border's great Yen was hung high on the bow of their ship. When the martial artists of the three great families saw it, they were scared out of their wits. Ha ha, little brother Wei, let me tell you. That young lady of the Lu family is really good. Her voice is very energetic. You really don't have the luck to not enjoy it with me. The calf-faced Wei Debao said. He had originally invited Wei Xiaobao to do it together, but Wei Xiaobao didn't agree. Brother Wei, you're wrong. That night, I was busy with the sisters of the Chun family. TSK, their voice was even more beautiful. They even dared to resist me. I twisted their arms and legs, and then, in their pain, The slipper-faced Wei Xiaobao was full of filthy words, and his eyes were filled with a bestial light that could destroy conscience. Immediately, the two of them laughed heartily and exchanged their experiences. Bang! Suddenly. Chapter 591. Why did a young man suddenly barge in? Judging from the bloodstains and bandages on Qin Hao's body, he was also injured. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, the anger on their faces was self-evident. Someone actually took advantage of the fact that they were drinking and having fun and recklessly boarded their treasure ship. For Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao, Qin Hao's action was undoubtedly a provocation, contempt, and a serious trampling. Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao were the masters of the younger generation of the great Yen Empire. Not only did a little ant from Western Liang swagger in and ruin the mood to drink, the other party even shattered the door. In their hearts, Qin Hao was already a dead man. You're courting death. Wei Xiaobao slammed the table and stood up. His eyes were flashing with killing intent. He didn't ask anything and was about to get rid of Qin Hao. At this time, Aku walked in. She was slim and had an excellent figure, exuding the unique charm of the blood clan. Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao's eyes lit up and they swallowed their saliva at the same time. Then, they looked at each other and saw incomparable excitement and thirst in each other's eyes. Along the way from the northern border, whether it was a cute lowly or a cold mature sister, they had harmed countless girls. They had never seen someone more wonderful than the girl in front of them. Wonderful! Wonderful! Ako had a kind of flirtatious beauty. Perhaps because she had just cried, her cheeks and eyes were slightly red, which made her look even more attractive. Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao's hearts were burning, and they were dumbfounded. She was a beauty sent to their doorstep. Ahem, brother, you're too rude to barge into someone else's ship. Wei Debao secretly pulled Wei Xiaobao, who had just stood up, and spoke politely, showing a very gentlemanly demeanor. I'll give you two choices. 1. Shut up and send us to the Luo Shui Empire. 2. Die. Qin Hao said coldly and directly. When he entered the door, he heard the conversation clearly and knew that the two young men in front of him were not good people. They would only harm others if they were alive. Qin Hao didn't mind crippling them. But for now, it was still useful to keep these two alive. If, unfortunately, the three aristocratic families were to intercept the ship, these two would be able to step in. How dare you! Wei Xiaobao was furious. He had been out for almost 2 months, and no one had ever spoken to him so loudly. Even the patriarchs of the major clans, whose cultivation base was higher than Wei Xiaobao's, would try their best to please them, and even offer their daughters to them. The bandaged brat in front of him was extremely reckless. Friend, do you know who you are talking to? Wei Debao also stood up coldly and stared at Qin Hao with his dead eyes. He wanted to act like a gentleman in front of Aku so as not to scare the beauty. But Qin Hao really didn't know how to appreciate favors. I don't want to repeat myself. Do you want to die? Do you want to? Shut up and send us to the Luo Shui Empire. This is your last chance to live. On Qin Hao's body, there were sparks that looked like fireflies. He could see through the strength of these two. They were just profound sages that could be destroyed with a flick of his finger. Brat, you are extremely bold. You are the first person in Western Liang who dares to speak to me like this. You don't know that I have 3 eyes on top of my head. Unforgivable. Wei Debao was trying to be a gentleman, but he really couldn't be any more. In the face of such a powerful expert, Qin Hao had repeatedly challenged his limits, thoroughly enraging him. Brother Wei, why are you talking nonsense with this brat? Watch me kill him in one move. Then, that woman, let's make her feel like she's a fairy on the spot. She actually took the initiative to come to us. Wei Xiaobao kicked the chair under him and walked towards Qin Hao while rubbing his fist. In his opinion, Qin Hao would definitely be unable to withstand a single blow. Moreover, he was injured. How stupid can you be to be so arrogant when you're injured? Brat, I'm afraid I'll scare you to death. When I make a move, the sky will fall and the earth will split. Tell me, how do you want to die? I will try my best to satisfy you. Of course, I will also satisfy the woman next to you. Wei Xiaobao's face was unbridled. In the Great Yan Empire, he and Wei Debao were given a famous name, called the Peerless Twins. Wei Xiaobao was one of the Peerless Twins, and his strength was incomparably powerful. Let me take care of him. Aku took a step forward. His voice was extremely cold. Usually, he couldn't stand this kind of people who pretended to be dogs, especially those with evil intentions and foul language. Yo, little girl, I advise you to stand aside obediently. If I make a move and can't control my powerful strength, it won't be good if I injure your alchemy. Let me kill your man first, then I'll deal with you. Moi, After speaking, Wei Xiaobao shouted loudly, and his body's vitality surged out, ready to kill Qin Hao in one move. He really couldn't wait. Wait. Suddenly, Wei Debao's voice came from behind. Wei Debao also hurried forward and grabbed Wei Xiaobao. His gaze fell on Qin Hao's face, carefully sizing him up. The more Wei Debao looked, the tighter his frown became. Why did he suddenly feel that the face of the youth in front of him was very familiar? Brother Wei, look at this person, doesn't he look like? Wei Debao pointed at Qin Hao, and then paused, meaning that he didn't look like the target they were going to get rid of this time. When Wei Xiaobao heard this, he instantly understood. His gaze also fell on Qin Hao, and his brows furrowed together. He nodded and said, "Yes, very similar, as if they were carved from the same mold." But this shouldn't be. Wei Xiaobao's face twisted. According to Crown Prince Zijun's description, Qin Hao should be in Jiang country. But now Wei Xiaobao and Wei Debao hadn't flown to Jiang country yet. It couldn't be so coincidental that Qin Hao also took the initiative to come here, right? That's too coincidental. This is the will of the heavens. The heavens are really too good. Come, let's take out the portrait and compare it seriously. While pondering, Wei Debao took out a portrait from his chest. This portrait was the same as the one in Yu Dakan's hand, also drawn by Duan Ziju. Duan Ziju handed the portrait to Murong Zijuan, and Murong Zijuan handed it to Wei Debao. The Qin Hao in the portrait had a tall and sturdy figure. He was not wearing any clothes, very different from the youth before Wei Debao. However, the face was exactly the same, very clear. Wei Debao felt somewhat confused as he looked at Wei Xiaobao. Although the face was the same, the figure was worlds apart. Don't rush. Let me ask him first. Wei Xiaobao was very smart. He took a deep breath and pointed at Qin Hao. Hey brat, I'll call you. Do you dare to answer? Qin Hao immediately frowned, feeling that there were two idiots standing before him. If you don't say anything, it means that you agree. Now I'll call you. Please listen carefully. Qin Hao. Wei Xiaobao asked tentatively. Thump. Qin Hao's heart skipped a beat. Damn. Why does this coquettish thing know my name? Qin Hao has never met this person before. What is going on? However, Qin Hao did not fear this. He said coldly, Your grandfather is here. Rumble. Chapter 592. Wei Xiaobao was not dreaming, right? Could it be that the young man in front of him was really the person that Crown Prince Zijun wanted to kill? Or could it be that the young man not only looked like Qin Hao, but even his name was the same? Could it be so coincidental? Qin Hao. Wei Xiaobao lowered his voice and asked again. Your grandfather is here. Qin Hao replied in a deep voice. Qin Hao. Your grandfather is here. Qin Hao. Your grandfather is here. Creak. Wei Xiaobao clenched his fists and couldn't control his excitement. He asked a few more times, and Qin Hao agreed immediately. The young man in front of him was indeed called Qin Hao. Let me ask you again. Where are you from? At this moment, both Wei Xiaobao and Wei Debao's expressions became serious. Originally from the state of Jiang, now from the great Qin of Western Liang. Since he wanted to kill Qin Hao would let him know the reason behind his death. What the f***ck, this person is indeed the target. Wei Xiaobao shouted and seemed very excited. He was so happy that he was about to cry. He even hugged Wei Debao and cried. Before the two of them reached Jiang country, Qin Hao took the initiative to send himself to them. So what if he came? He even sent them a beauty. Indeed, the heavens treated Wei Xiaobao and Wei Debao well. This trip was not in vain. Since that's the case, we don't have to go to Jiang country to kill your whole family. Qin Hao die. Wei Xiaobao directly made his move. His palm was wrapped in orange energy and pressed forward. He emitted the aura of a 6th-level profound sage and had the demeanor of an expert. Let me. Akka flashed and disappeared. She rushed toward the opponent like a gust of wind. Her slender right hand stretched out and the 5 blade-like claws on her fingertips flashed. Poochie! Wei Xiaobao's outstretched palm was cut off by the claw ray and flew away in front of his nose. As a stage 9 heavenly saint, Aku had completely suppressed her opponent in terms of cultivation. Her speed was too fast, so fast that Wei Xiaobao's hand was broken, but he did not feel any pain at all. The severed hand flew up like a big pancake, covering his feet. After the strike, Wei Xiaobao let out a blood-curdling scream. He hadn't even managed to release the primordial qi that he had raised, and the result was that his palm was broken. This vital energy pushed his blood to spurt out like a fountain from his severed wrist. What? Wei Debao was extremely shocked. He never thought that the woman beside Qin Hao would be so powerful. His reaction was not slow either. He pulled Wei Xiaobao and quickly retreated, putting some distance between them and Aku. There was no longer the slightest bit of frivolity on their faces. The effects of the alcohol had unknowingly vanished like smoke in thin air. They were so solemn that they even felt like they were about to suffocate. Their solemn expressions were mixed with a trace of shock and fear. Aku was very strong, very strong. They could not even sense her true cultivation. Just now, she had used a simple move to cut off Wei Xiaobao's hand without using any primordial qi. If he asked himself honestly, even Wei Debao, who was at the 7th stage of the profound sage realm, would not be able to injure Wei Xiaobao with a single move like Aku. I'll leave the rest to you. After cutting off Wei Xiaobao's hand, Aku's mood seemed to have improved a little, and she silently retreated. She was a smart girl. She could see that Qin Hao had some doubts in his heart, so she did not directly kill him. Okay. Qin Hao nodded and walked forward. Brother Qin Hao, don't be rash. Let's talk things over. Wei Debao was extremely nervous. He did not dare to show any arrogance and immediately lowered his head. What's there to talk about now, plop? Wei Xiaobao directly knelt in front of Qin Hao and endured the pain of his hand being cut off. With tears streaming down his face, he said, Lord Qin Hao, blame us for having eyes but failing to see that there's always someone better than us and offending you. In fact, we overestimated ourselves. We were completely forced by others and had no choice. Wei Xiaobao said in a tearful voice. He had decided that he would betray Murong Zijuan. He could see that he was not Aku's opponent, even with Wei Debao. In order to survive, dignity and integrity could go to hell. In any case, Murong Zijuan did not know about it. Are you not afraid of death? Wei Debao was very anxious. Betraying Crown Prince Zijuan would definitely not have a good ending. Bang! Qin Hao flicked his finger, and a wisp of primordial qi shot out from his fingertip and heavily struck Wei Debao's chest. Wei Debao was sent flying, and his back crashed into the cabin. With a cry, Wei Debao vomited a mouthful of blood. He felt that all the bones in his body were about to shatter. He stared at Qin Hao in shock. He could not believe that Qin Hao was so strong. Wei Debao was a 7th-level profound sage, but he couldn't even block a simple bullet from Qin Hao. In fact, if it weren't for Qin Hao's deliberate actions, Wei Debao would have died long ago. After all, the current Aku couldn't block a single punch from Qin Hao. I'll speak. I'll tell you everything. Don't kill me. Seeing this scene, Wei Xiaobao, who had lost his arm, was so frightened that his liver and guts were about to burst. He cursed Murong Zijuan's 18 generations of ancestors in his heart. The information that Murong Zijuan gave him was completely wrong. According to the information, Qin Hao was only a profound sage a year ago. But a year later, Wei Debao, who was in the 7th level of the profound sage realm, couldn't even block a wisp of primordial qi. Wei Xiaobao could tell from the pressure coming from Qin Hao that the latter's true strength wasn't much weaker than Daliao's warlord Manor's Crown Prince Duan. He might even be stronger. What a ferocious monster! Wasn't this clearly trying to kill the two of them? What are your origins and identities? Why do you want to kill me? Qin Hao flicked Wei Debao away with a finger. Wei Debao lay on the ground, shivering and not daring to make a sound. Then, he coldly said, "If you dare to hide anything, I'll make you regret being born." After saying that, Qin Hao clenched his fist, and a scarlet flame rose from it. Seeing this scene, Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao almost went crazy. Their faces were so frightened that they didn't look human anymore. The flame on Qin Hao's fist was a soul flame. The other party had a flame origin spirit. The aura of this flame was even more terrifying than Duan Ziju's. Who said that Western Liang's back was as weak as a dog? Who said that Qin Hao wasn't even comparable to Duan Ziju's pinky finger? Their ancestors were all Duan Ziju's pinky finger. They definitely weren't comparable to Qin Hao's pinky. At this moment, the two of them realized that Murong Zijuan, the crown prince of the northern border's great Yen, might have met the strongest enemy in his life. An enemy that was even more terrifying than Qi Yuan and Duan Ziju. And Qin Hao already had the capital to pursue Princess Jingyue of the Daliao Kingdom. Uncle Qin Hao, this lowly one is called Wei Xiaobao, and that guy with the gourd face is called Wei Debao. We are the peerless eagles of the northern border's great Yen. Wei Xiaobao was so frightened that he lost his mind. Northern border's great Yen? Qin Hao frowned and said in a deep voice, "Continue, get to the point. I'm not interested in your peerless eagles." Yes. It's actually like this. Wei Xiaobao also revealed the matter of Murong Zijuan pursuing Xiao Han to Qin Hao. However, whether it was Murong Zijuan, Qi Yuan, or Duan Ziju, Xiao Han didn't even bother to look at the three of them and maintained a cold distance from beginning to end. This Murong Zijuan wild donkey was jealous of brother Hao and Princess Jingyue's relationship, so he ordered the two of us to get rid of you. However, we had a conscience and deliberately delayed the time. You also saw it with your own eyes. We drank and made merry all day on the ship. Even if we stepped on an ant, we would cry for 3 days and 3 nights. We would feel guilty for the rest of our lives. How could we inhumanely kill you? Moreover, as soon as I, Wei Xiaobao, saw Big Brother's might, my heart was immediately filled with admiration. My admiration for you is like the endless surging river. This is the mission given to me by God, to let me, Wei Xiaobao, come to Brother Hao's side and be your capable subordinate. This time I won't go back. Big Brother above, please accept this little brother. Chapter 593. These 3 kowtows created dong noise on the deck of the ship. Wei Xiaobao's eyes were brimming with fanatical worship toward Qin Hao. He wished he could sacrifice his life for Qin Hao. Wei Debao, who was lying on the ground, was dumbfounded. Wei Xiaobao's flattery skills were top-notch. Xiao Han. Qin Hao's heart was filled with warmth as he murmured the name of the person he missed. He thought of the girl's cute appearance, her eyes curved into crescents as she called him Big Brother Qin Hao. It was as if she was right in front of him. It turned out that time had never diluted their feelings. It didn't matter if it was 1 year or 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years. With the passage of time, the longing and concern in his heart grew stronger. However, Qin Hao knew that Xiao Han's situation wasn't optimistic. Otherwise, there wouldn't be annoying flies swarming around him. Even the crown prince of the neighboring Great Yen and the prince of northern Qi would condescend and hover around Xiao Han every day, eager to devour her. No matter who it is, I won't allow you to take Xiao Han away from me a second time. Qin Hao's eyes suddenly darkened. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't worried. It wasn't that he was afraid that Murong Zijuan would take Xiao Han away. In fact, no one could take away Xiao Han's heart. Qin Hao still had this confidence. He was worried about Emperor Zhao's situation in Daliao. Xiao Han could defy her father's order and wait for Qin Hao. However, how could Qin Hao have the heart to let her wait? That wasn't the style of a man, and it wasn't Denda's style either. In Qin Hao's eyes, Murong Zijuan wasn't qualified to be an opponent, let alone Qi Yuan and Duan Ziju. Therefore, the agreement with Gongsun Changxing didn't need 5 years. 2 years was enough. This trip to the wasteland had completely changed Qin Hao. He decided to head to Daliao immediately after leaving the Medicine Valley. No matter who wants to use their power to oppress Shao Han to succeed the position of Empress, they will have to go through my fist first. Big brother Qin Hao, please accept me. I can see that you are much stronger than Murong Zijun. Who does he think he is? It was just that he was born from the womb of the Empress of the Great Yan dynasty, and was made the crown prince the moment he was born. Since he was young, he had no lack of elixirs and miraculous medicines. To put it bluntly, if I had him, Xiao Bao's achievements will definitely be above Murong Zijuan's. Of course, even though I'm the crown prince of Great Yan, my determination to take you as my elder brother will never be shaken. Compared to your little brother, the position of crown prince is nothing. Wei Xiaobao squinted his eyes as his thoughts ran quickly. From Qin Hao's silent expression, he could see how much he cared about Xiao Han. His eyes rolled as he chuckled, "Big brother, why don't you spare my life and let me be a counter-spy? When I return to Murong Zijuan's side, I will secretly report his every move to you." "Ha ha, this is wonderful!" Qin Hao looked at the laughing Wei Xiaobao with an expressionless face. He had to admit that although this bastard was afraid of death, he was very shrewd. If it wasn't for Qin Hao's 2 lifetimes of experience and his calm state of mind that allowed him to see through the viciousness hidden in the depths of his eyes, he would have fallen for his trick. It was a pity that this person was a two-faced person. He must not be allowed to live. "Big brother, as my little brother, please accept my little gift. Take a look." Swish. Wei Xiaobao willingly took out a sword from his interspatial ring. This sword was as red as blood and emitted a cold, murderous aura. Its appearance was very similar to the purple meteorite sword from before. It was a rare treasure sword. Qin Hao could tell with a glance that it was a supreme-grade saint artifact. It was just a hair away from reaching the level of a king artifact. It was indeed very powerful. This sword is called Tianxia. It was created by the joint efforts of my Northern Yan's chief blacksmith, and inscription master. It took a total of 81 days to make, and the process was extremely difficult. It was given to Murong Zijuan by the old emperor on the day he was made the crown prince. Now, I'm giving it to Big Brother. This is a supreme-grade saint artifact. Ha, there's more. Wei Xiaobao chattered endlessly, looking very anxious. He took out a large pile of medicinal pills and colorful bottles, scattering them all over the ground under Qin Hao's feet. Qin Hao focused his gaze as if he could see through the bottles. He could distinguish the type and quality of each bottle of medicinal pills based on the medicinal fragrance in the air. When his gaze fell on a small jade bottle with plum blossoms, his heart couldn't help but tighten. Immediately, the killing intent in his eyes towards Wei Xiaobao became even more intense. Ha, Big Brother, quickly smell it. This is a bottle of Plum Blossom Realm King pills. There is only one of them, and it can help a 9th-rank Heavenly Saint break through to the King stage. It is the most precious of all the medicinal pills in my collection. I'm giving it to you now. As Wei Xiaobao spoke, he eagerly opened the bottle of Plum Blossom Realm King pills and placed it under Qin Hao's nose. A cold smile hung on his lips, but he hid it very well. Qin Hao sneered inwardly. He pretended to be excited. After all, this was a medicinal pill that could help one break through to the king stage. He had to be excited. So, he leaned forward and sniffed it. The medicinal fragrance is pure. It's the best of the best. Qin Hao praised. Just as he finished speaking, his expression changed. He clutched his chest and took several steps back. What's going on? I'm dizzy and my head hurts. My blood is flowing faster and faster. Heavens, the origin energy in my body has become thin and is drying up. Qin Hao, what's wrong? Aku's complexion changed. He hurried forward. According to Qin Hao's description, these symptoms were very serious. Drying up one's origin energy could cause death. They were being hunted down by the three great families. Qin Hao was very strong. If they lost Qin Hao, they wouldn't be able to fly out of the wasteland. Nothing could happen to Qin Hao. Ha ha, brat, you are too stupid. To tell you the truth, this isn't a plum blossom realm king pill, but a lover's kiss. Do you know what a lover's kiss represents? Wei Xiaobao finally revealed his foxtail. There was no longer any respect in his eyes towards Qin Hao, only killing intent. Lover's kiss? Aku couldn't help but scream. This was poison, an extremely potent poison. Legend had it that just the medicinal fragrance was enough to poison a king stage master to death. A lover's kiss enjoyed a terrifying reputation throughout the continent. Damn it! Aku's complexion changed. He rushed forward without a care. Hee, it's too late. No one that Crown Prince Zijun wants to kill can survive. Wei Xiaobao will let you die at midnight. You won't be able to see the sun tomorrow. A toad eating swan meat. You dare to make an enemy out of Crown Prince Zijun and blaspheme Princess Jingyue. You are overestimating yourself. Go to the coffin. Wei Xiaobao acted quickly. At this moment, his hand didn't hurt anymore. He kicked the Tianxia sacred sword on the ground with his right leg, and it landed in his left hand. Swish! The sword pierced towards Qin Hao's heart. Qin Hao was hit by a lover's kiss. His origin energy stopped circulating, and he fell into a state of exhaustion. His body was also corroded by the poison. In fact, even if Wei Xiaobao didn't act, Qin Hao would slowly rot and die. The process was incomparably painful. However, Wei Xiaobao still had to act. He had to kill Qin Hao with his own hand. Qin Hao was trash. This sword pierced out very quickly. After all, the distance between the two of them was too close. Aku didn't have the chance to save him. Even if he rushed forward, he would fall into the poisonous gas of a lover's kiss. He would be like Qin Hao and become a cripple who couldn't circulate his origin energy. So, before you die from the poison, I will have fun with you first. You actually dared to cut off my little hand. Do you know who Xiao Shou is to me? He is my girlfriend. I love him. Die for me. Wei Xiaobao let out a mournful scream. The swift and fierce Tianxia sword accurately pierced Qin Hao's heart. Ding! Chapter 594. In fact, he was not so kind as to give Qin Hao the divine sword and a large number of elixirs. Being his underling was not his true intention. He wanted to kill him. He had taken out the Tianxia sword so that he could kill Qin Hao. The elixirs on the ground were just to confuse him. The most powerful one was the lover's kiss. Unfortunately, Wei Xiaobao had miscalculated. As a dandy, Qin Hao was very sensitive to elixirs. He had already known that the plum blossom jade bottle contained poison. When he sniffed it, the red lotus fire had already been activated. The most domineering fire aura in the world had already isolated the poison from the lover's kiss. At that moment, Wei Xiaobao was using the sharpness of the Tianxia sword to stab Qin Hao in the heart. If it had been an ordinary person, even a low-level Yuan monarch, the sword would have pierced through the heart. There was no room for discussion. It was as easy as cutting tofu. However, when the sword landed on Qin Hao, a layer of phosphorescent light suddenly appeared on his chest. Although it was just a flash, it exuded the majesty of a dragon. Wei Xiaobao's legs trembled and he almost peed in his pants. How can this be? I can't even pierce through his skin? Was that scale a dragon's scale? Wei Xiaobao said in a trembling voice. Since he didn't manage to kill Qin Hao, his fate was clear as day. Don't come over. With a flip of his hand, Qin Hao pushed Aku, who was charging at him, back. Immediately, he grinned at Wei Xiaobao and said, "What's wrong, little brother? What are you afraid of? Didn't you want to give me the sword?" However, your method of giving me the sword is quite special. Gulp. Wei Xiaobao swallowed his saliva and immediately moved the Tianxia sword away from Qin Hao's chest. His face was full of smiles again. Yes, yes, yes. I am giving you the sword. This is a special sword gifting ritual of the Northern Yan people. It is to show our respect to the person we love the most. Big brother, please accept me. Plop. After saying that, Wei Xiaobao was so scared that he knelt down again. He felt that the Qin Hao he stabbed just now was not a human, but a monster. And I'll take care of you now. He didn't want to make any more silly joke. Pop. A crisp sound rang out. Qin Hao snapped his fingers. A spark of blood flew out from between his fingers and stuck to Wei Xiaobao's face. As soon as Wei Xiaobao made contact, his entire head caught fire and was wrapped up in raging flames. He let out a heart-rending, lung-splitting scream. His left hand frantically tore at his face, tearing the skin off his face. It was too horrible to look at. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a pile of black residue. Originally, I wanted to spare your life to help me chase away the pursuers from the 3 great eras. Who told you to act smart? Qin Hao's eyes were cold as he looked at Wei Debao. Run! How could Wei Debao dare to remain here? He circulated his essence and charged out of the cabin's window. It was too terrifying. It was too terrifying. It was extremely monstrous. Qin Hao was not a human. Earlier, Wei Debao purposely acted with Wei Xiaobao to confuse Qin Hao. However, Wei Xiaobao held a peak-grade holy sword and stabbed it at Qin Hao, who was struck by lover's kiss. However, Shao Qin remained unharmed. There was no more terrifying existence in the world than this. That was the Zijuan Crown Prince's sword. Rumble! Wei Debao smashed through the window and escaped. He turned his head back and laughed loudly. Qin Hao, oh Qin Hao, you are quite incredible. However, your reaction is a little slow. We will meet again. When Grandpa comes again, I will definitely kill your entire clan. As Wei Debao spoke, he quickly took out a broom from his interspatial ring. This broom was not an ordinary item but a rare flying Dharma tool. When he drove it at full power, its speed was no slower than a king-ranked treasure ship. This was one of the 3 treasures that Murong Zijuan gave them before they came here. Hence, Wei Debao clamped his legs on the broom, wanting to return to the northern borders. However, after Wei Debao scolded Qin Hao, he turned his head. Roar! A huge beast mouth opened and the dog spirit bit down, swallowing Wei Debao's head into its stomach. Immediately, Wei Debao's headless body dashed out on the broom. Its speed was indeed quite fast. Seeing this, the dog spirit spread its 20-meter-long wings and chased after the flying broom. It was impossible for it to let the broom fly away. Now, the broom belonged to Qin Hao. Inside the ship, Qin Hao did not care about Wei Debao, who was escaping. He knew that Wei Debao would not be able to escape. He used all his strength to sweep out a ball of red lotus fire, burning the poisonous bottle containing lover's kiss. Soon after, he let out a long breath and wiped off the sweat on his head. Was he really all right? Wrong. The lover's kiss was very poisonous. Fortunately, Qin Hao's body was not an ordinary body. It was formed from all the living beings in the world. The toxicity of lover's kiss was negligible to him. As time passed, the remaining poison in his body would slowly be purified by the spiritual energy of the world or by the red lotus in his body. The fire would evaporate. The current Qin Hao was almost invulnerable to poison. Are you all right? Ako came up and asked Qin Hao with a trembling voice. She saw a small red dot on Qin Hao's pectoralis major, and blood was seeping out. I'm all right. Killing a first-stage Yuan monarch is not a problem. Qin Hao clenched his fist and smiled. He bent down to pick up the Tianxia sword and passed it to Aku. This is for you. This sword is very strong. My dragon's soul was pierced by it a little. If that fellow was stronger, He might have really pierced through my defense, Qin Hao said solemnly. He was very serious. If Wei Xiaobao was a low-level Yuan monarch and had this sword, he would definitely be in big trouble. This sword was unusually sharp. It was even made of better material than Qin Hao's purple meteorite sword. You are really a pervert. Aku did not argue. She kept the sword with a hint of joy and excitement in her eyes. Along the way, she had become familiar with Qin Hao's abilities. Qin Hao had twin primordial spirit. His flame was an extraordinary flame, and his body was a dragon's soul. Both were very strong. Once, a first-stage Yuan monarch from the three aristocratic families could not even pierce through Qin Hao's defense with an all-out attack. However, this sword had actually pierced a small swollen red on Qin Hao's dragon body. It had even seeped out blood. The sharpness of this sword was evident. I was just worried that I did not have enough herbs. These two idiots took the initiative to deliver them to me. Qin Hao put the elixir bottles that had spilled all over the floor into his spatial ring. Other than the lover's kiss, the rest of the herbs were mostly healing and vitality, replenishing elixirs. They were indeed what Qin Hao needed. The quality was also quite good. After all, they were produced by the great Yen of the northern borderline. I really don't know if you are lucky or unlucky to have a martial emperor's daughter who likes you. Furthermore, she is dead set on you. Through Wei Xiaobao's explanation, Aku learned about Xiao Han's existence. Xiao Han was Qin Hao's childhood sweetheart and had grown up together. It was a pity that Qin Hao's current status was very different from Xiao Han's. There was most likely no hope for Xiao Han. No, it is not that I am lucky. It is Xiao Yi who is blessed. Qin Hao was about to say that Xiao Yi had benefited greatly from being able to become Denda's father-in-law. Suddenly, Qin Hao narrowed his eyes. He sensed an aura rapidly approaching. No. The other party was already in front of him. Screech. Chapter 595. At this moment, in the outside world, a rock that was over 100 m in length was flapping its wide wings like an undying phoenix, and it obstructed the path of the treasured vessel. Its body was covered in flames that lit up half of the sky. The heat wave forced the treasure ship to stay away. Therefore, the two sides floated in the air, maintaining a distance of 20 meters. I'm Yu Dakin, son of the Lieutenant General of the Wolf Army, Daliao's warlord mansion. I wonder which friend of the northern Yen has come to the western Liang land. Come out and show yourself. Yu Dakin stood on the rock's back with his hands behind his back, his face cold. Looking carefully through the rock's flame net, one could see that there were some slight bruises on Yu Dakin's face, and his clothes were stained with dried blood. It was not hard to guess that he had experienced a massacre. His purpose of this trip was to deal with Qin Hao. However, he had brushed past Qin Hao more than a month ago, so he did not recognize him. When he arrived at the Jiang kingdom and found that it had been destroyed, Yu Dakin was a little surprised. However, he did not care about the small Jiang kingdom. His target was Qin Hao, so he found Xiaogua, at this moment, blocking the treasure ship with the northern Yen king's flag. Yu Dakin was very nervous and could not even hide his nervousness. Fortunately, apart from him, this rock was a high-level sacred beast. When it unleashed its true power, it was almost invincible under the king's stage. This made Yu Dakin feel relieved. Friends of the northern Yen, Daliao and northern Yen are both empires of the northern border. You don't have to be shy. Come out and meet us. After that, Yu Dakin did not see anyone come out, so he shouted again. However, after that, no one came out, which made Yu Dakin very confused. According to the arrogant and domineering personality of the northern Yen people, they should not be so pretentious. In the eyes of the northern Yen people, they were more superior and honorable than the warriors of Daliao. Are you looking down on me? Yu Dakin's chest was filled with anger as he laughed coldly. That's fine. Either way, we're going to shed all pretense of cordiality. If you don't come out, don't blame me for not warning you. I'm going to make my move now. Flame rock, burn this ship. Udakan pointed forward and got into a battle stance. Once someone came out of the ship, he would immediately attack and kill them. He could not let the people of Northern Yin attack Qin Hao's family. Screech! The raging flame rock raised its head and let out a loud cry, clearly dissatisfied with Udakan's actions. It was a saint beast and had high intelligence. It knew that its master was only asking Udakan to sow discord and not to kill the people sent by Murong Zijuan. Although it was dissatisfied, it still made a move. As it flapped its fire wings, two powerful waves of fire gathered under its wings, growing stronger and stronger. If it flapped its wings, it would definitely be able to pierce through the ship that Qin Hao had seized. Wait! A voice rang out. Subsequently, Qin Hao walked out with a lazy expression. He rubbed his nose and stood at the bow of the ship, looking at Udakan. The reason why he didn't appear earlier was because Qin Hao wanted to see what Udakan's motive was for stopping the people of Northern Yin. Now, Qin Hao knew that perhaps this guy from Daliao's warlord mansion wasn't an enemy. It's you, Qin Hao? How could Udakan forget this face that was still fresh in his memory? His eyes were filled with disbelief and excitement as he quickly ordered the raging flame rock to stop. Sir, you know me too? Qin Hao smiled faintly. First, it was the people of Northern Yin. Now, it was the people of Daliao. Interesting. Are you really Qin Hao? Are you from the Jiang Empire? Do you know Her Highness Jingyue? No, you know a lady named Xiao Han? Udakan felt like he was in a dream. He was anxiously looking for Qin Hao all over the world when Qin Hao appeared. Moreover, he came out from Northern Yan's ship. Udakan couldn't help but be cautious. Yes, I am Qin Hao. Qin as in Qin Hao, Hao as in Qin Hao. Friend from Warlord Mansion, why are you looking for me? Qin Hao said calmly. Qin Hao, why are you on Northern Yan's ship? Come down quickly. They want to kill you. Come down quickly. After confirming, Udakan immediately became anxious. He hurriedly waved his hand and called out, fearing that the assassins of Northern Yin would appear behind Qin Hao in the next second. Unfortunately, Wei Xiaobao and Wei Debao had just died. They couldn't act recklessly anymore. Why can't I be on Northern Yan's ship? This ship is not bad. Qin Hao replied. It was better to be careful before he figured out the other party's intention. Brother Qin Hao, are you stupid? Come down quickly. Compared to Qin Hao's calmness, Udakan was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. He called out repeatedly, but Qin Hao refused to come down. Could it be Qin Hao was threatened by Northern Yan's people? Was he under a restriction and lost his strength, or was he poisoned? That was why Qin Hao didn't leave obediently. Qin Hao, don't be afraid. I will help you. The bastards of Northern Yin in the ship, listen up. Come out immediately. What kind of hero are you to do such despicable things in secret? If you have the ability, fight with me, Udakan. Udakan shouted angrily. Qin Hao was speechless. What was Udakan trying to do? There's no one on the ship. No. There are two guys. One has a gourd face and calls himself Wei Debao. The other has a slipper face and calls himself Wei Xiaobao. But these two guys, what? It's actually the ruthless people of Northern Yin, the peerless eagles. Before Qin Hao could finish speaking, Udakan let out a shriek when he heard the names of Wei Debao and Wei Xiaobao. His heart began to pound, and his face filled with bitterness. The other party's strength was higher than his. Especially Wei Debao, who was at the 7th stage of the profound sage realm, 2 stages higher than Udakan. Although he had the help of the raging flame rock, Qin Hao was currently subdued by the other party. What should he do? Udakan was very anxious. So those two dead people are quite powerful. Qin Hao couldn't help but find it funny. Look at how scared Udakan was. They're more than powerful. One of them is at the 6th stage of the Profound Sage Realm, while the other is at the 7th stage of the Profound Sage Realm. They're famous lechers in Northern Yen. When they work together, they're proficient in a joint attack technique. They once killed an 8th stage Profound Sage Realm expert. The two of them cultivated the technique of plucking yin to replenish yang, and they specialize in harming talented girls. They're vicious, merciless, and shameless to the extreme. In order to achieve their goals, they'll do anything. Brother Qin Hao, you quickly. What? Dead people? They're dead? Yu Dakin chattered endlessly, his eyes red with anxiety. The peerless twin eagles were indeed terrifying. But as he spoke, he suddenly glared. Yes, they just died, and their blood is still warm. If you're sent by Duan Ziju to humiliate me, then I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Because the peerless twin eagles aren't my match, you won't be able to do anything. Even your rock combined won't be able to do anything. Qin Hao shook his head. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. The first time he faced the raging flame rock, Qin Hao was very powerless. He could only watch as it circled above the Fengli Temple, and watch as Duan Ziju destroyed the Phoenix Glass Hall. But now, Qin Hao could also make the raging flame rock disappear with a single move, leaving not even a single hair behind for Duan Ziju. The current me has risen. You killed the peerless twin eagles of Northern Yen? You killed Wei Debao and Wei Debao? How is that possible? Please wake up and stop lying to yourself. Recognize that you're a fool. Chapter 596. Even if he was beaten to death, he would not believe that Qin Hao had killed the two peerless eagles. According to Duan Ziju, Qin Hao was only a primary master a year ago. After a year, he would at most become a primary master or a peak primary master. This was already the highest evaluation that Yu Dakin could give Qin Hao. A barren land like Western Liang, especially a small country like the Jiang nation, could not nurture a sage expert. Now, not only did he fail to show off, but Qin Hao also showed off. Forgive me for being blunt, but the one who should be clear-headed is you. Actually, you are the fool. If you are here to replace Duan Ziju, just bring it on. If not, I won't keep you company. Qin Hao was in a hurry to return to Luoshui, so he turned around and headed for the cabin. Screech! The raging flame rock let out an angry cry. It could tell that Qin Hao was trampling on its master in his words. Ignoring the frightened Yu Dakin on its back, it flapped its wings, and the monstrous flames it had just condensed flew in Qin Hao's direction. The flames under its wings turned into two giant blades, and with a sharp sound, they slashed towards Qin Hao. Raging flame rock, how dare you! Yu Dakin's body trembled as he stepped on the raging flame rock's back and roared anxiously. This holy beast's attack power was extremely strong. If the raging flame rock threw the raging flame rock, how could Qin Hao survive? The raging flame rock would probably turn the ship into ashes. However, it was too late to stop it now. Furthermore, Yu Dakin did not have the strength to stop the raging flame rock. Boom! Boom! The two flames flew over in the blink of an eye and landed on Qin Hao's head. Too weak to stand up to the wind, Qin Hao turned around indifferently. His cold eyes flashed as he sent out two small flames from his fingers. The flames flew over like two snakes and blocked the huge raging flame rock. Playing with fire in front of me? You are simply courting death. It's over. It's over this time. Yu Dakin cried. His original intention was to help Qin Hao, not to sow discord. Now, for no reason, he had become the murderer of Qin Hao. Looking at the large and small flames that were about to collide, Yu Dakin was filled with regret. Even if Qin Hao had 100 lives, he wouldn't be able to survive. Chi. As expected, the red lotus flame and the raging flame rock's beast flame came into contact. However, at this moment there was an unexpected change. The seemingly powerful beast flame turned into nothingness. On the other hand, the two small fire snakes that Qin Hao shot out seemed to have eaten stimulant. After swallowing the beast fire, they instantly expanded and turned into two fire dragons that were 10 meters long. They coiled around each other and bared their fangs and claws as they flew toward the raging flame rock, letting out shocking roars. The fiery rock was dumbfounded. His eyes were filled with disbelief. As a fire-type creature, it could sense the destructive power within the Red Lotus fire. That power was above all flames. It was not an exaggeration to call him the overlord of fire. Yudakan's eyes widened, and he couldn't help but cry out. This was too inconceivable. Qin Hao's seemingly weak flame had swallowed the powerful fire of the great rock. In the next second, he was not only surprised but also terrified. The two fire dragons had already pounced over. Yudakan could feel the raging flame rock under his feet trembling in fear. The one who was doomed was not Qin Hao, but Yudakan. Hua. Just as the Red Lotus flame dragons were about to swallow the other party, Qin Hao waved his hand casually. The two fire dragons disappeared into thin air. The sparks that filled the air followed their original trajectory and returned to Qin Hao's body. Congratulations, you are the first person to escape from my soul flame. However, my warning is only for this one time. Next time, you won't be so lucky. Qin Hao said calmly. After hearing this, Yudakan's face was covered in sweat. His body was soaked in cold sweat, and his legs were trembling. The raging flame rock was not much better. Its burning flames were completely extinguished. It did not dare to show any disrespect before Qin Hao's peak tyrant flame. Qin Hao's Red Lotus flame had a strong innate pressure on all fire-attributed lifeforms. It was like the king of fire. At this moment, as Yudakan looked at the youth with fluttering black hair at the bow of the ship, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. Yudakan was completely convinced that the two peerless eagles were dead. Not even ashes remained. Yudakan had to admit that the current Qin Hao had the qualifications to be proud. Even if the person standing before Qin Hao was Duan Ziju, he would lose all his elegance and admit defeat. Qin Hao, I have something important to discuss with you. I hope you can give me some time. This matter concerns Her Highness Jingyue. Yudakan acted like a student as he bowed to Qin Hao. The strong deserved to be respected. What background and status? Before absolute strength, they appeared weak and comical. I have a lot of time. Come in and talk. As long as it was related to Xiaohan, even if Qin Hao didn't have time, he still had to squeeze some time, even if there were millions of enemies from the three aristocratic families chasing after him. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked into the cabin. Inside the cabin, Qin Hao and Yudakan sat around the table where Wei Xiaobao and Wei Debao had been sitting. Aku leaned against the window, her long hair draped over her shoulders. She was cleaning the Tianxia sword in an orderly manner. Her eyes contained a hint of joy. From time to time, she would stick her head out of the window and look at the blue sky outside the ship. The dog spirit had chased after the broom for a long time, but it still hadn't returned. Aku was a little worried. Yudakan stole a glance at Aku. He couldn't hide the admiration in his eyes, but there was more fear in his eyes. Aku was very beautiful and flirtatious. Her natural charm was very attractive to men. What was terrifying was that Yudakan couldn't see through her strength. He could only judge based on his intuition that he wouldn't be able to last half a move against this flirtatious woman. Such a powerful and beautiful woman made him break out in cold sweat for Princess Jingyue, who was far away in Daliao. He could see that Qin Hao was a very charming person. Even the women around him were so outstanding. Yudakan glanced at the black slag on the deck and shuddered again. Presumably, this black slag brother was Wei Xiaobao or Wei Debao. At this moment, he firmly believed that Qin Hao had killed the two peerless eagles. State your purpose for coming, Daliao's genius, young master Yu. Qin Hao leisurely poured a cup of wine for Yudakan. I don't dare, I don't dare. Yudakan hurriedly took the cup. In front of Qin Hao, what kind of bullshit genius was he? He wasn't even worthy of Duan Ziju. Qin Hao, you're really special. No wonder Her Highness Jingyue likes you so much. Even after she returned to Daliao, she still misses you day and night. She often smiles foolishly by herself. Sigh. Yudakan sighed. First, Yudakan gave a simple explanation of what happened after Xiao Han returned to Daliao. This was to put Qin Hao at ease and dispel Qin Hao's hostility. After that, Yudakan told Duan Ziju about the purpose of his trip. He received Duan Ziju's orders to sow hatred between Qin Hao and Murong Zijuan. More accurately, Yudakan wanted to make Xiao Han hate Murong Zijuan so that Duan Ziju could reap the benefit. As long as Qin Hao died, Duan Ziju would have an opportunity to curry favor with Xiao Han and win her heart. In that case, why did you not listen to his orders and intercepted the assassins that Murong Zijuan sent? Qin Hao smiled faintly, feeling very interested in this matter. Now that Xiao Chun thought about it, he did indeed meet Yudakan when he first entered the wasteland. However, the two of them had their own goals back then and were in a rush. Hence, they brushed past each other. Chapter 597. Xiao Yi had fought for 10 years and unified Daliao. There were many things waiting to be done in the empire and it urgently needed to recuperate. In terms of power, he could not do without the support of the warlord mansion. Even if he was pressured in some aspects, he could only turn a blind eye. Xiao Yi tolerated it not because he was afraid of Duan Ziju's father, but because of his daughter. Yudakan saw all of this and felt helpless. As a man of Daliao, he naturally supported the orthodox royal family. That day when I had a sword competition with Princess Jingyue, Duan Ziju secretly ordered me to come to Jiang Kingdom to instigate you. But my conscience told me that I couldn't do that. What's the difference between me and the traitor who was killed by Emperor Xiao? Yudakan was a nationalistic youth. He loved Daliao's territory and the people of Daliao deeply. The country could not fall into chaos again. So he pretended to agree, but secretly came to help Qin Hao kill the assassins sent by Murong Zijuan. That was why he was so nervous when he heard the name of the peerless twin eagles. It was because he was no match for them. Of course, I'm not helping you. I'm helping our Princess Jingyue. This time, I'm helping you get rid of the assassins only for one purpose. Also, I want to advise you to let go because I think you're not worthy of our Princess Xiao Han. Yudakan was a little embarrassed when he said this. Now, how could he have the confidence to persuade Qin Hao to let go? Even a genius like Qin Hao who had the soul fire was not worthy of Xiao Han. There was probably no one in the world who could catch Xiao Han's eye. You're a good person. If Uncle Xiao Yi has more important ministers like you and your father, it will be Daliao's blessing. Qin Hao admired Yudakan's character. To be precise, he admired those who could share weal and woe with him. For example, Daqin's Zhan Lang, Yu Feng, Xian Yu, and Qin Qing. Of course, if anyone wanted to be a traitor, the only outcome was death. Do you really believe me? Aren't you afraid that I'll lie to you? Yudakan looked at Qin Hao with some surprise. His intuition told him that this young man with deep eyes was definitely a very meticulous person. Yudakan was surprised that he was able to gain Qin Hao's trust with just a few words. I won't hide it from you. If even someone with Brother Yu's IQ could fool me, then I, Qin Hao, wouldn't be alive now, ha ha ha. Qin Hao suddenly let out a hearty laugh. It had been a long time since he had laughed like this. He realized that Yudakan was a fun person. He looked smart, but his character was simple and honest, even a little silly. All right. Yudakan scratched his head embarrassedly. He asked himself if he was that stupid. Otherwise, how could he have fooled Duan Ziju? You brushed past me in the wasteland back then. You must have come to the Jiang Kingdom, which is now the Western Liang Daqin. How do you feel after taking a tour? Qin Hao asked with a smile. Brother Hao, do you want to hear the truth or a lie? Just tell me the truth. Qin Hao certainly wanted to hear the truth. To be honest, your daqin is a little weak, Yu Dakin said tactfully. What about the lie? Qin Hao asked back. It's too weak. The people are too poor, their equipment is not good, and the cultivation of the soldiers is generally too low. To put it bluntly, if your daqin and my Daliao were to go to war, my father's wolf army alone would be enough to wipe out 5 dakins. Yu Dakin said bluntly. After that, he looked at Qin Hao with some worry, afraid that he would upset him. I didn't expect the military of the mainland to be so strong now. Qin Hao became serious. He was not angry, but he compared and calculated in his heart. The army of Beijiang was already so powerful. What about Qin, which occupied the richer Dongzhou? After all, Qin Hao would return to his homeland in the future and take back the throne. Brother Hao, don't be too discouraged. I heard from Xiaogua that you have just been established and need to develop and grow. Oh, by the way, the 180 cities in the east of Daqin are very powerful. Xiaogua accompanied me to take a look. Is that where your elites are? The place that Yu Dakin mentioned was under the jurisdiction of the Sword Prince's family. Only the soldiers in that place could barely compete with the wolf army. However, if they really fought, they would still be no match for the wolf army. Whether it was the cultivation of the experts or the war horses. After all, the soldiers of the Yu clan's wolf army rode demonic beasts, which were rank 3 saber-tooth. Are you close to Xiaogua? Qin Hao smiled. He was quite satisfied with the soldiers of the Sword Prince's family. It was not an exaggeration to call them the current elites of Daqin. I'm familiar with them. Yu Dakin pointed at the dried blood on his body. The blood belonged to Xiaogua and Yu Dakin himself. At that time, he rode the raging flame rock to Jinling City. Jinling City was also the current capital of western Daqin. Maybe it was because he was a bit arrogant at that time, which caused Xiaogua to be dissatisfied. The two of them exchanged pointers. At the beginning, Xiaogua was indeed not Yu Dakin's opponent. The difference in cultivation between the two of them was too big. However, later on, Xiaogua transformed. Although I still won in the end, it was still not easy. Yu Dakin rubbed his chest. It seemed that there was still a lingering pain in his chest. If he asked himself honestly, if they were in the same realm, he would definitely be beaten up by Xiaogua. It was simply too terrifying. After talking with Brother Yu, I benefited a lot today. Go back and tell Xiaohan that within 2 years, the Daqin that you said was the weakest will become the strongest empire in Western Liang. As for me, as the #1 warrior in Western Liang, I will propose marriage to Uncle Xiao. Tell Xiaohan to wait for me. Qin Hao stood up. From the wolf army that Yu Dakin mentioned, he could vaguely judge the current fighting level of the mainland's army. There was indeed a huge gap between the western Daqin and the eastern Daqin. Qin Hao would clearly recognize his current weakness. Since the 2 peerless eagles are dead, I should take my leave. Brother Hao, don't worry. I will pass the message to the princess. However, you must not let her wait for too long. Also, don't do anything that will let the princess down. Otherwise, even if I have to fight to the death, I will let you know how powerful the men of the northern Xinjiang are. Yu Dakin glanced at Aku. It was a warning to Qin Hao not to flirt around. Hey, playboy from the northern Xinjiang, are you sure you want to leave? I am very embarrassed to tell you that there are currently millions of people in the wasteland chasing after Qin Hao. If he dies, Aku smiled flirtatiously. Considering that Qin Hao might not be able to lower himself to ask Yu Dakin for help, Aku did not have any scruples. Yu Dakin's identity was so special. With him on the ship, there was no need to worry about encountering people from the 3 aristocratic families. Brother Hao, are you in trouble? Yu Dakin frowned. If you are in trouble, you should have said so earlier. This, Qin Hao secretly glanced at Aku. Women were really meddlesome. Alright, to be honest, there is a small problem. If Brother Yu is not in a hurry to leave, can you drive this ship and bring me back to Luoshui? Ha ha ha, Aku, who was at the side, burst into laughter. He had thought that Qin Hao was made of iron and would never ask for help from others. I have a lot of time. It is my honor to work with Brother Hao. Although Yu Dakin did not know what trouble Qin Hao was in, he was still very happy to be able to help him. At that moment, he was about to ask Qin Hao the reason. Roar! Suddenly, the ship shook violently. Then, there were the roars of beasts and the chirping of birds. Chapter 598. 2 days later. The most majestic city at the border of the wasteland, Shiping City. On top of the city walls, there were many armored soldiers, looking mighty and majestic. Compared to before Qin Hao came, the city walls of Shiping City had been artificially extended by thousands of meters. Standing on top, one's field of vision became wider, and the defensive power was enhanced to another level. As for the hundreds of thousands of border guards in Shiping City, they were all on standby, ready to attack. From afar, people could see a damaged treasure ship gliding in the sky. It was not fast, but it made a heavy buzzing sound, and it was emitting billowing black smoke. After waiting for so long, you're finally here. Die. A mighty roar suddenly sounded from the city walls. A general in his 50s, wearing heavy armor, turned into a black shadow and flew toward the treasure ship. Immediately, the sound of drums and the excited roars of soldiers could be heard from the city walls. The general who flew out was the governor of Shiping City, Simon Laoqing, who had lost 2 of his sons. He gritted his teeth and glared like a tiger. From afar, he gathered all of his vitality and punched the treasure ship with a Red King-level attack. The red fist radiance was extremely turbulent, like an expanding light beam. It extended for hundreds of meters. With a loud bang, it penetrated the entire ship. The hull exploded in the air, and the broken wooden planks flew everywhere, exploding into pieces. Ha ha ha, the governor is mighty. The enemy didn't even react. He's too powerful. I didn't even hear a scream. This time, our Shiping City has made a great contribution. Brothers, quickly go down and search the scattered wreckage, see if you can find the corpse of the Qin family's remaining member. What's there to look for? The governor's punch can also penetrate the city walls. The Qin family's remaining members are most likely dead. Some of the deputies and soldiers on the city walls began to flatter Simon Laoqing, praising his bravery. I was a little excited and didn't control myself. I'm ashamed. Looking at the destroyed ship, Simon Laoqing's mighty body floated in the air. He rubbed his fist, and his face was filled with pride. He was extremely satisfied. Although he had not fought for many years, the power of this punch was enough to seriously injure opponents of the same level, let alone Qin Hao, a mere saint. Now that he had personally killed the enemy who had harmed the 3 great clans, the greatest credit should belong to Simon Laoqing. He couldn't help but put his hands on his waist and laugh wildly. Old City Lord Qing, it's too early for you to be proud. There's no one on this ship. Suddenly, a strange voice sounded beside him. There was no emotion in the voice. Then, the space in front of Simon Laoqing rippled, and a handsome middle-aged man with white hair and a youthful complexion walked out. The middle-aged man held a fly whisk in his hand. There was no fluctuation of yuan qi on his body. He floated lightly in the air. Even his aura could not be sensed. He was one with the heavens and earth. Although he did not display any of his cultivation, this kind of extremely restrained power was obviously a terrifying character. But there was something very funny about him. He was wearing a pointy hat on his head. Of all the colors, the hat had to be green. Junior pays his respects to Grand Elder Duge Xianshao. Simon Laoqing's heart suddenly contracted violently. In front of more than 100,000 subordinates, as the city lord of a military city, he knelt down towards the middle-aged man. Moreover, he was prostrating himself on the ground. His entire body was lying on the sole of the middle-aged man's feet like a lowly dog. Simon Laoqing did not even dare breathe loudly after he knelt down. The middle-aged man looked younger than Simon Laoqing, but in fact, he was more than 3 times older than Simon Laoqing. In other words, this middle-aged man with white hair and a youthful complexion was close to 200 years old. He was the grand elder of the Dugu family. Regardless of strength or status, he was above the Dugu family head. Furthermore, he was the strongest person in the 3 great clans and was known as the #1 expert of the wasteland. It was said that Dugu Xianshao had already been a 4th-level Yuan Venerate before he had gone into seclusion. Now that he had come out of seclusion after 20 years, Simon Laoqing could not imagine how strong he had become. Simon Laoqing was very puzzled by Dugu Xuanxiao's personal visit to Shiping City. A month ago, he had received a notice that the upper echelons of the 3 great clans had collectively gone to the headquarters of the Northern Border Spirit Array Guild. Dugu Xianshao had clearly followed along. However, a few days ago, he had appeared out of nowhere in the city lord mansion of Shiping City, which had simply scared Simon Laoqing out of his wits. Now that he had heard the other party say that there were no survivors in the ship he had shot down, Simon Laoqing became even more nervous in an instant. "Get up. As the city lord of a military city, you are so careless. I don't know why the Shiman family sent a fool like you to Shiping City to oversee things." Dugu Xianshao did not look at Simon Laoqing from beginning to end. To him, the person lying at his feet was just an ant. After saying that, he looked up at the sky. His bright eyes seemed to be able to disperse the clouds. With a glance, he could see the entire wasteland. Interesting. Dugu Xianshao sneered. Could it be that the other party had abandoned his flying artifact to cross the boundary of Shiping City on foot? If he wanted to conceal his aura and pass through the mountains and forests, it would not be a bad idea. It's a pity that with me overseeing things, even an ant can forget about leaving the wasteland under my watch. Dugu Xuanxiao's eyes suddenly surged with boundless killing intent. He clenched his fists as if his hatred for Qin Hao had reached its peak. With a flick of the whisk in his hand, his body disappeared in the air again. No one knew where he had gone. The other party's broken ship had already flown over. He guessed that Qin Hao should be hiding nearby. In fact, he did not care about the modified defensive power of Shiping City at all. He alone was enough to keep watch. His consciousness spread out. Even if Qin Hao turned into a worm, he could forget about escaping. He was a 5th-level Yuan Venerate. Even if the heavens descended this time, they would not be able to save Qin Hao from the wasteland. At the same time, on the other side, "Brother Hao, what should I say about you? This move is extremely risky. You are simply stupid." Yudakan was full of dissatisfaction and resentment as he paced back and forth anxiously in front of Qin Hao. At present, they were steering Wei Xiaobao's boat towards the direction of Nanshui City. Nanshui City spanned half of the wasteland. It was a small, remote city with nothing special about it. However, Qin Hao had left Shaolei and Shaojun in a small mountain village outside the wilderness of Nanshui City and had forgotten to go back to pick them up. Just as they were about to fly out of the wasteland, he suddenly remembered. Therefore, Qin Hao had turned back and headed for Nanshui City at full speed these 2 days. If he left the wasteland, he had to bring Shaolei and Shaojun with him. This was Qin Hao's promise to him. "Thank you for escorting me, brother Yu." "Thank you very much," Qin Hao replied calmly. The speed of the Northern Yen treasure ship was extremely fast. When it turned back, it was blocked by many martialists from the 3 great families. After all, the ship had just flown away from the various cities a few days ago. Now that it was flying back, it had aroused a lot of suspicion. However, all the obstacles vanished when Yudakan appeared. Chapter 599. With Udakan's appearance, the warriors from the three families did not have the guts to search the ship. Udakan already knew about the grudge between Qin Hao and the three families on the way here. Udakan was very against taking the risk to pick them up. According to their speed, they should be at Luoshui's border now, and Qin Hao should be safe. However, if they were to fly back now, Qin Hao's life would be in danger if anything went wrong. Udakan would also be implicated and could forget about returning to Daliao alive. Xiaolei and Xiaojun are of the royal bloodline of the wasteland. As a member of the Qin family, I should shoulder the responsibility and ensure their safety. Qin Hao looked at Udakan and said apologetically. He glanced at the giant rock in the corner. The giant rock had shrunk to the size of a pheasant. Half of its feathers were torn off, and the proud feathers on its head were bald. It looked very funny. Its eyes were filled with fear as it shivered in the corner. In front of it, the dog spirit rolled its eyes. It had a large beast bone in its mouth, and from time to time, its tongue would curl out and lick it. The dog spirit remembered clearly that the giant rock was arrogant in the sky above the Fengli temple. At that time, the dog spirit was weak. As Qin Hao's guardian, it did not have the strength to fight against Duan Ziju's mount. Now, it was different. Lord Dog had risen. Therefore, when it came back from chasing the broom, it saw the giant rock. It was so anxious that its eyes turned red, and it rushed up while howling. As it was infected by the fire energy of the red lotus in the interspatial ring, its resistance to fire was very strong. The flaming giant rock's flames could not hurt the dog spirit at all. It was not a match for it at all. If Qin Hao did not come out in time to stop it, the giant rock would have been torn apart alive. This dog spirit would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Looking at the flaming giant rock that was scared to death, Udakan's face was a little twisted. Duan Ziju's mount had always been fierce. Who would have thought that it would be tamed by a wild dog today? Sigh, I hope that after this trip, we can successfully fly out of the wasteland's border and out of Western Flat City. I can also return to report to Princess Jingyue with a peace of mind. Although Udakan was against Qin Hao's way of doing things, at the same time, he was impressed by Qin Hao's chivalry. Honestly speaking, Udakan didn't have the courage to brave the pressure of millions of enemies and go back to fetch someone. Whoosh! The 100-meter-long ship flashed high in the sky and disappeared into the clouds. It plunged straight into the wilderness of Nanshui City and landed at the place where Xiaolei and Xiaojun were staying. Nanshi Village, the originally peaceful little mountain village, had turned into a river of blood today. Corpses were strewn all over the ground. The villagers' simple and crude houses were ablaze with flames. Countless cries and screams could be heard from within the flames. It was obvious that they were in extreme pain. However, no one dashed through the flames to escape, because in front of the fire, there were more than 100 soldiers. They were wearing armor with sabers hanging from their waist. They were holding torches and laughing happily. There were also a few people who were mercilessly throwing the torches in their hands at the burning houses. They cheered as they threw the torches. This village is really good. They have so many treasures hidden away. Why didn't I realize that they were so rich before? A soldier stuffed the treasures in his hands into his arms in satisfaction. His clothes were stuffed to the brim, and it was obvious that he couldn't fit them in anymore. A few necklaces popped out and hung on his armor, shining brightly. This soldier's eyes were shining and he was drooling. He wasn't the only one. His companions were the same. After robbing the villagers of their wealth, their bowls and alms bowls were full. Many gold bars fell out of their pocket. There were also some soldiers who were carrying long spears. On the tip of their spears were the geese that the villagers had painstakingly raised. They had practically ransacked Nanshi village, not even sparing the geese. Let's go, brothers. Let's go see if our regiment commander has settled that pretty chick. Ah! A burly man who seemed to be the captain threw the torch in his hand at the burning house in front of him. At that moment, the cries and shouts from the house stopped. As they turned around, the house collapsed with a rumble. This small army of 100 people was the Dugu family's soldiers who had been ordered to search for Qin Hao. They were part of Nanshui City's 2nd Regiment. This kind of search was carried out throughout the entire wasteland. They didn't let go of a mountain, a river, an inch of land, or even a pile of grass. Even if they had to dig 3 feet into the ground, they still had to find Qin Hao. However, when they arrived at Nanshi village, the soldiers suddenly realized that the villagers here were living far better than the other villages. Some of the women even wore jewelry, and the quality of the jewelry was quite good. This attracted the attention of their regiment commander. Thus, the village chief was forced to hand over all the treasures left behind by the immortal in exchange for the safety of his family. Who would have thought that the soldiers would take the money and become even more ambitious? They believed that there were even more treasures hidden in the village. Slowly, it evolved into a massacre and humiliation. The elderly were driven together and burned alive. The children were stabbed to death. The young girls were tortured by the soldiers in every possible way. The heads of the village chief's family were hung on the old locust tree at the entrance of the village as a warning to others. The pretty girl that the captain had mentioned was Xiaolei. However, because Xiaojun had the thunder fireball that Qin Hao had refined before he left, he suddenly threw it at the soldiers' faces. Immediately, the entire group was reduced to ashes. At this moment, the regiment commander of the 2nd Regiment, a general with the cultivation of a mortal saint, was facing off against Xiaojun. "Kid, I'll make you beg for death. I'll appease the souls of my 200 brothers who died in heaven." In an unremarkable little courtyard in the inner area of Nanshi village, 1,000 people surrounded the small courtyard like an iron bucket. Not even a drop of water could leak out. A general with a large rectangular face gritted his teeth and pointed at the young boy in the courtyard. He hated Xiaojun to the bone. "Sister, don't be afraid. I won't let them get close to you. I'll be as brave as big brother Qin Hao." Compared to his previous cowardice, Xiaojun's face was now filled with determination. Even though his legs were trembling, he didn't take a single step back. Behind him was a young girl in a white dress. That was his sister. "You bastards, you're devoid of humanity. You'll suffer retribution." In the courtyard, other than Xiaolei and Xiaojun, there was also a white-haired old woman. The old woman was a lonely old woman. She had been sent by the village chief to take care of Xiaolei and Xiaojun, but she had unexpectedly survived. Nanshi village had been reduced to rubble. Her face was covered in tears as she pointed at the general with a large rectangular face. The general was originally the protector of the people, but today, he had turned his butcher's knife against his own people. The people had provided military funds, but in the end, all they got was a massacre. They were feeding their conscience to the dogs. "Ha ha! I'm laughing my head off. What retribution! You old bastard!" The long-faced general moved. He licked his lips and slowly pulled out the battle sword at his waist. He moved his burly body and walked towards the young Xiaojun with a suffocating pressure. After surrounding them for so long, he had ordered the soldiers to get close to Xiaojun more than once. Xiaojun seemed to have used up all the terrifying black balls in his hands. Chapter 600. Don't worry, I won't kill you with one strike. I'll leave you with your cheap life so that you can watch how I'm loving your sister. That kind of helplessness, struggle, and torture will eventually become your nightmare. You'll die in fear and despair. I'll cut off your limbs first. The long-faced general roared. He held his sword with both hands, hid it under his armpits, and charged at Xiaojun. Although he did not use his yuan qi, his speed was still dazzling. He had a ferocious aura like a tiger running down the mountain. Swoosh! The moment he moved, Xiaojun raised his hand and threw an unknown object in front of him. "There's more." The long-faced general was slightly surprised. He knew that the object was the thunder fireball that had burned the soldiers to death. The quality of this thunder fireball was extremely good. Be it ordinary soldiers, elite soldiers, or even peak sky grandmasters, all of them died immediately after coming into contact with it. He was very wary of this and did not dare to be careless. He believed that if he was burned by the flames, even if he did not die, he would lose half his life. Therefore, he raised his sword and hit the thunder fireball with a clang, sending it flying. He was stunned on the spot and said angrily, "It's a stone? You're courting death." What he had hit was not a thunder fireball, but a small stone thrown by Xiaojun. It turned out that Xiaojun had used up all his thunder fireballs and was just bluffing to play with him. This made the long-faced general feel deeply humiliated. "I'll give you another one." Xiaojun's rhythm was very fast. He raised his hand and threw another thunder fireball at the long-faced general's face. "The same method will not work a second time. Do you think I'll fall for your trick again? You're courting death." The long-faced general was very angry. He waved his left hand and slapped it in front of him. Pah! There was a crisp sound. But this time, he did not hit a small stone, but a real thunder fireball. It was also the last remaining thunder fireball in Xiaojun's hand. Boom! Flames exploded in the field, wrapping around the long-faced general's palm and spreading up his arm. At this moment, a hoarse scream reverberated. As the long-faced general had expected, he could not withstand the flames of the thunder fireball. Even if he used his sage yuan qi to resist, he could not stop the flames from devouring him. His body. However, he was indeed ruthless enough. He made a prompt decision and swung his sword down. With a poochie sound, his left arm was cut off from the shoulder. Looking at the severed arm burning at his feet, the long-faced general's heart was filled with fear for a long time. Damn it! Damn it! I'm the dignified commander of Southwater City's 2nd Division. I'm a 5-star mortal saint. I've fought countless battles throughout my life, and I've made countless contributions in battle. Yet, I've actually lost to a brat today. The long-faced general was enraged, and his eyes instantly turned bloodshot. He had lost so much face in front of his own soldiers, letting a child cripple one of his arms. If word of this got out, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? Die! Carrying extreme anger, the long-faced general roared endlessly. Ignoring his bleeding shoulder, he turned into a blur as he charged forward. Brandishing his sword with one hand, he hacked towards Xiaojun's head, wanting to cleave this devilish brat in half. "I'm sorry, sister. I tried my best." Xiaojun knew that he would not be able to escape death. However, in the face of death, he was instead calm. With a faint smile, he turned back to look at his sister. He still could not fulfill his promise with Qin how to protect his sister. As a man, he was simply too much of a failure. Xiaolei did not say anything in response. Her slender white jade-like hands stroked Xiaojun's head. Then, she hugged her little brother and closed her eyes. She muttered in her heart, "Fortunately, the sacred dragon ring is in Qin Hao's hands. Treat it as repayment for Qin Hao's life-saving grace." She did not know where Qin Hao was right now and whether he was safe. She hoped that he would never come back. She hoped that his memories would forever remain at the most peaceful scene in Southwater Village when he left. Swoosh! The battle sword mercilessly hacked down, bringing with it a cold, killing intent. It was like a hurricane pressing down on her head. As it hacked down, the sword wind unbridled swept up Xiaolei's hair. However, she was not afraid. To her, perhaps death was a release. However, after a long time, Xiaolei did not feel any pain. Instead, there were frequent exclamations of shock. Xiaolei could not help but frown slightly. She slowly opened her eyes. "Oh my God! Is this real?" He only used 2 fingers to clamp down on Senior Master's full-powered sword. Along with the exclamations of shock, the long-faced general stood in front of Xiaojun. His right hand tightly gripped the battle sword that was as wide as a palm. He exerted all his strength to press it down. His face was red and blue veins popped out on his face. He seemed to be using all his strength. However, the sword stopped above Xiao Jun and Xiao Lei's heads. It could not advance even half an inch, as if it was frozen in the air. Moreover, there were two fair fingers blocking the sword blade. Xiao Lei was immediately shocked. She silently turned her head to look. Behind her stood a young man in white. He stood with his hands behind his back. He was very tall and had deep eyes. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. He gave off a strong sense of mystery, but also a very amiable feeling. There was no doubt that it was Qin Hao. Elder brother Qin Hao, elder brother Qin Hao, you are finally back. I thought you didn't want us anymore. After surviving a great disaster, Xiao Jun cried out loud. His empty heart seemed to have found sustenance. Young Master Qin Hao. Xiao Lei still had not reacted. Her beautiful eyes were wide open. She felt as if she was in a dream. Just a moment ago, she was still thinking about Qin Hao. In the next second, he appeared. When she thought of you, you were in her mind. When she thought of you, you were in front of her. I promised you that I would come back. A gentleman's promise is as heavy as a mountain. Qin Hao replied with a smile. He even used his left hand to touch Xiao Juan's head. He appeared to be at ease. Suddenly, the long-faced general's face became even more embarrassed. It was as if excrement was blocked in his anus. It made him extremely depressed. Qin Hao not only used two fingers to clamp down on his sword blade, but also had the mood to joke with others. He completely ignored the full-powered attack of a saint-level opponent. Shame. It was a great shame. Who are you? Although the long-faced general was depressed and angry, he was even more afraid. The fear in his heart was growing stronger and stronger. Who I am is not important. What is important is the villagers of Nanshi village who were harmed. You will pay with your blood, Qin Hao said coldly. With that, he twisted his fingertip. Crack! The general's sword, which was forged by the army, broke in one blow. Immortal Elder, please uphold justice for our suffering Nanshi village. Kill this group of human-faced beasts. Kill these dog-made things. Kill them. The old woman in the courtyard, the last remaining elder of Nanshi village, knelt on the ground and sobbed as she begged. So you are the one who left behind the treasure. The long-faced general was inexplicably delighted. No, I am the one who spared your life. After breaking the long-faced general's sword, Qin Hao's movements were as smooth as flowing water. He picked up the sword tip that had fallen and, with a flash of cold light, he plunged it into the long-faced general's chest. The seemingly simple stab was extremely powerful. The impact was extremely terrifying. Like an armor-piercing bullet, it sent the long-faced general's burly body flying 1,000 meters away. The general's bulging eyes bulged. Bang! 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 He crashed through a dozen houses and landed heavily on the ground. What? The long-faced general spat out a mouthful of blood. His expression was extremely horrified. He had never imagined that there would be an unruly citizen who would attack the army in Nanshui City's territory. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. Qin Hao ordered coldly, as if he was talking to the air. However, at that moment, 4 gusts of wind came from the sky. 2 of them were human figures, while the other 2 were beasts. They were unbelievably fast. Before the surrounding soldiers could react, Aku and the others had already fallen into the crowd. Immediately, blood splattered. Broken limbs and bodies of soldiers were thrown into the air. Aku was a peak heavenly saint expert, while Yu Dakin was a 5-star mortal saint. The abilities of the dog spirit and the flaming rock were comparable to low-rank beast kings. How could ordinary soldiers be a match for them? They were like wolves in a pen of sheep. No one could stop them. However, neither Aku nor the dog spirit used Yuan Qi. They only used their physical strength to tear their enemies to pieces. It would be too easy for them to kill them with a single blow. The miserable state of Nanshi village made one's hair stand on end. They had to let these beasts, who were worse than pigs and dogs, experience a fate worse than death. Therefore, when Aku attacked, he only destroyed their organs. He would not kill them with a single blow. The enemy would slowly die in pain and breathing difficulties. When it came to killing, Udakan was not as skilled as Aku. Udakan's method was very simple. He bared his fangs and brandished his claws, tearing off the enemy's legs and shoulders with his bare hands. He was extremely violent. As a loyal, patriotic, and nationalistic youth who loved his people like his own children, even if the people of Nanshi village were not Daliao's people, Udakan was still infuriated. In just a short moment, the 1,000-man army was strewn all over the ground. They were missing arms and legs. They kept rolling on the ground, screaming miserably. It was like hell on earth. Occasionally, there were a few lucky fellows who managed to escape, but they were caught by the flaming rock. Its sharp claws fell and crushed their heads. In order not to alarm Nanshui City, the flaming rock only transformed into the size of an eagle. You dared to make an enemy of the wasteland army. You will not have a good ending. I will make you regret living in this world. The long-faced general roared as he turned into a ball of light and shot into the sky. His heart was bleeding. The 2nd Division was finished. Other than him, no one else had survived. Unfortunately, you won't have that chance. Just as the general rose into the air, Qin Hao chased after him like a ball of flame. He arrived behind him in the blink of an eye and slapped the long-faced general's shoulder, pulling it down with all his might. Qi La. Along with his armor, the skin on the long-faced general's back was peeled off by Qin Hao. He was covered in blood. You can try hanging on a tree too. A metal chain flew up from below. After catching it, Qin Hao smashed the man's dantian with a palm. The chain pierced through the man's abdomen. Qin Hao swung his hand, and the chain flew out with the long-faced general hanging on an old locust tree at the village entrance. Chapter 601. As long as we pass Xiping City and enter the Luoshui border, we will be safe. A few days later, Udakan drove the treasure ship, carrying Qin Hao and the rest to Xiping City. Looking at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window, he heaved a sigh of relief. Before this, not a single soldier of the 2nd Division escaped from the disaster of Nanshi village. Qin Hao stood under the tree, looking at the long-faced general who was hung up. He screamed for an entire day, and died in the wee hours of the morning after his blood ran out. The more he screamed, the faster he bled, and the process was extremely painful. After that, Qin Hao threw a ball of red lotus fire towards the ruins of Nanshi village. The whole mountain was razed to the ground, and the soldiers who were not dead were buried together. With the ground as the coffin and the sky as the lid, Qin Hao set up a grand funeral for the villagers of Nanshi village. As for the old lady, she rejected Qin Hao's good intentions and did not board the ship. She knew that her status was low, and she was from a different world from Qin Hao. So she stayed and lived alone at the foot of the mountain as a tomb keeper. This time, I will have to trouble Brother Yu to remove that thing from Simon Lao Qin. When I go to Daliao, I will treat Brother Yu to a meal. Qin Hao smiled at her. Looking at the approaching Xiping City, a strong sense of danger rose in his heart. Looking down through the clouds, the security of Xiping City seemed to have increased a lot, and the soldiers were strong. He hoped that it was just his imagination, and that he could bring Xiaolei and Xiaojun back to Luoshui safely. Calculating the time, Qin Hao had already missed 3 days of school. In the ship, Xiaolei and Aku were talking and laughing. Along the way, they found out about each other's identity. Although at the beginning there was a grudge between them, but with Qin Hao's relationship, the grudge was quickly broken, and now they were like sisters. As they got closer to Luoshui, they felt more relaxed. As long as they got out of the wasteland, they would be able to see the bright world of Luoshui. Who's there? Stop it right now! As expected, just as they flew to the sky above Sheeping City, a deep roar could be heard. Immediately, a tall figure wearing heavy armor floated up from below, blocking the path of the treasure ship. On the city walls, there were countless giant crossbows that were ready to fire and aimed at the sky. As long as Simon Laoqing gave the order, these powerful crossbows would definitely fire and turn the people on the ship into hedgehogs. Yudakan nodded at Qin Hao, giving him a reassuring look. Then, he walked out alone. Qin Hao secretly circulated his yuan qi. The ominous feeling in his heart grew heavier as he prepared for battle. It was one thing for Simon Laoqing to let him go. If they didn't let him go, Qin Hao would have to fight them. With the power of the Red Lotus Flame Source Spirit, as well as the help of the Dog Spirit and the Flaming Rock, he was confident in fighting Simon Laoqing. Old Qing City Lord, we haven't seen each other for a long time. Have you even forgotten about me? Out of the cabin, Yudakan stood proudly at the bow of the ship. With the tone of a superior, he looked at Simon Laoqing expressionlessly. Yudakan really didn't care about a mere Western Liang City Lord. Because he was the eldest son of the Charging Wolf Legion's commander in Daliao. So it's young Master Yu. Shiman Laoqing hurriedly saluted and smiled. A while ago, Yudakan rode the Flaming Rock back and forth. He had passed by Sheeping City twice, so he was familiar with him. However, Simon Laoqing had a trace of doubt. A few days ago, when Yudakan flew back from Luoshui, he had told him that he was going back to Daliao in the northern border. Now he was back? And he was driving a big ship. Don't you see the Northern Yen flag on the ship? There are members of the Northern Yen royal family on the ship. They are going to Luoshui to play. What? Old Qing City Lord dares to stop the Northern Yen treasure ship? Yudakan saw the other party's doubt and said in a questioning tone. But in fact, Yudakan's palms were already sweating. A member of the Murong royal family of Northern Yen? Simon Laoqing was shocked. He couldn't afford to offend him. He was so scared that his face changed and couldn't help but want to kowtow. But in the next second, he asked, as a noble of Daliao, why are you the boatman of Northern Yan's Prince Murong? When he asked this question, Yudakan was stunned. Indeed, even if Daliao was on good terms with Northern Yen, with Yudakan's status, he wouldn't stoop so low as to be someone's boatman, even if the other party was a member of the Northern Yen royal family. It's none of your business. I'll be the lackey of whoever I want to be. Get lost immediately. Don't blame me for not reminding you. Prince Murong is drinking and having fun in the ship. If you disturb his mood, your entire wasteland can't bear the consequences. Yudakan didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced and threatened loudly. This, Simon Laoqing was terrified. If it was a normal day, he would naturally challenge Yudakan. But today was different. The supreme elder of the Dugu clan was in the city. Dugu Xianshao had given a strict order that no one was allowed to step out of Western Fair City. Young Master Yu, I'm just following orders. I hope you can forgive me. I have to board this ship personally and check it out. If I offend Prince Murong because of this, I'm willing to accept the punishment. Simon Laoqing said in fear. Although he was afraid, he still flew towards the ship. Shiman Laoqing, how dare you overstep the authority of the imperial family of Northern Yen? Are you trying to make us, the Great Liao and Great Yen of Northern Border, dispatch our army to wipe out your wasteland? Yudakan's heart was in his throat. His back was drenched in sweat. If Simon Laoqing boarded the ship, Qin Hao would definitely be discovered. But Shiman Laoqing was also very panic-stricken in his heart. He felt that he had fallen into the misfortune of 18 generations of ancestors. If he retreated, he would be killed by Dugu Xianshao. If he went forward and angered the Northern Yen royal family, it would undoubtedly bring a great disaster to the Shiman clan. but he could only brace himself and approach, even if there were thousands of donkeys galloping in his heart. One last sentence. Stop immediately. If you don't blame me for being impolite. Udakan got into a fighting posture and waved his hand. Screech. The flaming rock flew out of the cabin. Its body instantly expanded to 300 feet. Its body was covered in flames and its wings were flapping. It was like a blazing sun blocking Simon Louching's path. It's okay. Let him come in. Let me see what kind of hero the Wasteland Lord is. Of course, it's easy for him to come in. But whether he can get out of here alive will depend on the ability of the Lord Simon Louching. Suddenly, a dignified voice sounded in the cabin. Qin Hao changed his voice and imitated another voice. He also brought out the tone of a superior person to the fullest. In fact, the air of an emperor in his tone was even stronger than that of the Luo River Emperor. The imposing manner in this sentence was enough to make people revere him. I don't dare. Please forgive me, Prince Morong. I'll let you in. I'll let you in immediately. Simon Louching was so scared by Qin Hao's voice that he trembled and almost peed in the air. He was almost sure that the person in the boat was extremely noble. The temperament in the other party's voice could not be imitated by ordinary people. Only a descendant of the royal family could have such a breathtaking noble aura. He wiped the sweat off his face and moved sideways in front of the treasure boat to make way. Phew! Udakan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. His tensed heartstrings almost broke. At this time, he also admired Qin Hao. If he did not know that the person in the boat was Qin Hao, Udakan would have thought that Emperor Shao had come in person. The aura of a king was so pure that it was even greater than Emperor Zhao's. It was like an ancient king. Chapter 602. Who are you? Udakan couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Dugu Xuanxiao's appearance made him feel a heavy pressure. This technique wasn't caused by extreme speed, but by tearing space apart. Udakan was from a prestigious family in the northern border, so he still had a discerning eye. He was absolutely certain that Dugu Xianxiao was a venerate powerhouse. Only a venerate almighty could tear space apart. Furthermore, Udakan had only felt the pressure from Dugu Xuanxiao's body from his father. The person before him was a rather powerful figure. My name is Dugu Xianxiao, the supreme elder of the Dugu family in the wasteland. Dugu Xianxiao spoke faintly with a hint of arrogance on his face. He was very satisfied with Udakan's momentary loss of self-control. Dugu Xianxiao, why are you blocking the northern Yan prince's treasure ship? Udakan pointed at the other party and reprimanded him. His relaxed mood tensed up again. The person before him was obviously not as easy to talk to as Simon Louching. Are the juniors of Great Liao so ignorant of etiquette? You should respectfully address me as senior. Dugu Xianxiao was very unhappy to be reprimanded by a junior. He. My etiquette is respectful to the seniors of my country, not to the barbarians of this desolate land. Cut the crap. If you have nothing else to say, get out of the way quickly. Don't delay Prince Morong's journey. Although he was extremely nervous, Udakan pretended to be calm on the surface. Furthermore, he had the right to be arrogant. Dugu Xianxiao was very strong, but that was only in the wasteland. In the Daliao Empire, a venerate powerhouse could only be considered first-rate. There was still a huge gap between him and the peak powerhouses of the Daliao Empire. For example, Udakan's father was a 6th-level Yuan venerate. If he came to the wasteland, he would be the number 1 person. However, under Emperor Zhao's command, he was only fit to be a legion commander. Humph! Dugu Xianxiao snorted coldly. It had been 100 years since anyone had dared to speak to him in such a tone. In the wasteland, Dugu Xianxiao could be considered an emperor. However, he knew that he was at most a local tyrant. He wouldn't be able to scare Udakan, who had seen the world. Dugu Xianxiao calmly said, "Half a month ago, an earth-shattering event happened in the wasteland. There is an inauspicious person who slaughtered 2 successors of our Dugu clan, as well as the successor of Shimin clan and the successor of Huangpu clan. As the great elder of the Dugu family, I should investigate the truth and capture the murderer. I would rather kill 10,000 innocents than let half of them escape. Anyone who leaves the wasteland must go through my search. I hope Prince Murong can understand this old man's pain of losing his grandchildren. I lost 2 of my grandchildren. Can you understand the feelings of an old man? So, I hope that Prince Murong can come out for a visit. Of course, this can be considered as the old man treating you with courtesy. If not, I don't mind boarding the ship to check it out myself. How dare you? Yu Dakan roared, his eyes spitting fire. Dugu Xianshao was extremely daring. Who did he think he was? To put it nicely, he was a senior at the venerable level. To put it bluntly, he was just a local tyrant from a small world, a frog at the bottom of a well, who dared to board the ship of the northern frontier royal family. If Yu Dakan wasn't driving the ship of northern Yen, but the ship of Princess Jingyue of Daliao, Dugu Xuanxiao's actions today were undoubtedly blasphemous to Her Highness Xiao Han. Although he said so, Yu Dakan really had no reason to stop him. After all, 2 of his grandsons had died. If it were any other time, it would be reasonable for him to make an exception. But today, Yu Dakan had no way to make an exception, because the murderer of his grandchildren was Qin Hao on the ship. Descendant of Daliao, old man has already given you a lot of face. Normally, he wouldn't talk nonsense and annihilate you in one blow. I don't want to waste time. As long as Prince Murong comes out with all your servants, I will immediately let you go. There are 4 people inside. All of them must come out. Dugu Xianshao smiled coldly as he probed the auras of the 4 people in the ship. No one could hide from his eyes. At this moment, Yu Dakan was in an extremely difficult position, and his face was twisted. Similarly, Qin Hao was also extremely nervous and clenched his fists. Dugu Xuanxiao's cultivation was too high. Even if he used a disguise technique, he couldn't hide from his eyes. Prince Murong, why don't you speak? I've already asked you twice. I'll give you one last chance. If you still don't show yourself, old man will board the ship. While speaking, Dugu Xianshao took a step forward in the air. How dare you? Yu Dakan blocked the bow of the ship, his legs trembling. He was really on the verge of collapsing. You're dawdling. There must be a trap. I'll count down from 3. 3, 2, 1. Dugu Xianshao narrowed his eyes and his gaze turned cold. He was ready to make a move at any time. Just as he finished his last count, whoosh, whoosh, 2 figures flew out of the cabin and floated in front of the treasure ship. Qin Hao's eyes were cold. Aku was wearing a veil, and her body was surging with primal qi. She didn't disguise herself. In front of a venerable realm expert, their disguise technique could easily be seen through. Therefore, the 2 of them appeared in their true forms. Old City Lord Qin, how have you been? Qin Hao said in a deep voice. It's you, Simon Laoqing was stunned. Yes, it's me. Today, I had the mood to drink with Prince Murong. I borrowed his ship to return to Luoshui. School is about to start in Qiangbin. I hope you can let me through. Qin Hao said so, but in reality, he was ready to make a move. Ahahaha, let me through? Bah. You don't want to take the road to heaven and barge into hell. Do you think you can hide from me? You're delusional. I've been waiting for you for too long. Creak. Simon Laoqing clenched his fist. His face was filled with hatred. He no longer believed Qin Hao's nonsense. According to the information from Broken Dragon Cliff, the dwarf who was with Qin Yun on that day claimed that he had killed Duguji, Huangpu Daki, and Shimin Laoqing's son. When the news came, Simon Laoqing immediately thought that it was Qin Hao. He was so angry that he almost turned the city lord's mansion upside down. He guessed that the dwarf was most likely Qin Hao. But he didn't dare to jump to conclusions. After all, Qin Hao was a disciple of Qiangbin. He was a person of Luo Shui and had Elder Zhen's guarantee. His identity was very special. If Qin Hao had come to Shiping City alone, perhaps Simon Laoqing wouldn't have dared to do anything to him. Unfortunately, from Dugu Xuanxiao's probing and Qin Hao's abnormal behavior, it was clear that he was guilty. At this moment, Simon Laoqing was almost certain that the murderer was Qin Hao himself. Dan Gu really played a good show for Old Man. He dared to make fun of our three great families. Grand Elder Xian Shao, this person is the murderer of Dugu Ji, Dugu Yu, Shiman Aoran, and Huangpu Daqi. It was also him who caused the number 1 alchemist of the Huangpu family to be petrified. He was the one who killed my son, Simon Laoqing said through gritted teeth. He clenched his fists so hard that they made cracking sounds. He should have guessed that it was Qin Hao. But it wasn't too late to see through it today. He immediately ordered for Qin Hao's portrait to be drawn to replace the non-existent dwarf. But after thinking about it carefully, there was no need to do so. Because today, Qin Hao was dead for sure. Squeak! Hearing this, Dugu Xianshao suddenly tightened his grip on the fly whisk. His eyes flashed with monstrous anger. Immediately, he sobered up and loosened his grip slightly. His extremely cold eyes stared at Qin Hao. In his eyes there was only Qin Hao. I only want to ask you one question, Dugu Ji. Did you kill him with your own hands? Yes. Since they had torn off all pretenses, Qin Hao didn't need to hide anymore. He only regretted that during the shocking battle at the Broken Dragon Cliff, he was so angry that he revealed a flaw. Good, very good. Do you know who Dugu Ji is to me? He is my son. Dugu Xianshao roared. The roar was so fierce that it was like a sudden thunderclap in the clear sky. The purple flame aura of a venerable expert spread out like a gust of wind. His momentum rose crazily, and the vigorous Yuan Qi shook the sky and made a strong cry. Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, Qin Hao couldn't help but be a little surprised. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers below, including Simon Laoqing, were stunned at the same time. No one expected that the second son of the Dugu family, Dugu Ji, was not the son of the patriarch, but the son of the supreme elder. Surprised, right? Haha, it's all because the old man drank too much 20 years ago. He made a mistake and mistakenly entered his daughter-in-law's boudoir. Unfortunately, he had sex with her and created the bastard Dugu Ji. But no matter what, Dugu Ji is still my son. And, to tell you the truth, the current patriarch of the Dugu family is not of my bloodline, but a puppet that I picked up. Dugu Xianshao revealed this shocking secret. When he was young, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation, which wasted his youth. When he was old, he found that he had no son and no successor to inherit his ancestral business. So, he ruthlessly snatched someone else's child to cultivate, which was the current patriarch of the Dugu family. Dugu Xianshao thought that he would have no more children in this life. Heaven had eyes. 20 years ago, he cultivated a strange technique that greatly improved his fertility. He was so happy that he held a banquet and celebrated with the whole family. In the end, after drinking, he walked into the wrong room in a drunken stupor. That was why he committed such an outrageous act. This was originally a scandal of Dugu Xianshao and the entire Dugu family. He wanted to keep it a secret for the rest of his life. He would be satisfied as long as he silently watched his son grow up. Otherwise, with Dugu Ji's background, how could he have the ability to become the strongest successor? After all, Dugu Ji's mother was just a concubine. Dugu Ji was born a bastard, but he was stronger than the eldest son. Of course, he had the support of the Supreme Elder behind him. But who would have thought that Qin Hao would kill Dugu Xuanxiao's son? Dugu Xianshao had lived for more than 100 years before he gave birth to Dugu Ji. In order not to affect his son's reputation, Dugu Xianshao was willing to hide this secret and not acknowledge his son. They didn't acknowledge each other back then, and now, they would never have the chance to do so again. His son was already dead. His body was exposed in the wilderness, and Qin Hao had stripped him naked before he died. I was wondering why you were wearing a green hat. So that's how it is. Qin Hao shook his head and sighed. His sigh was filled with endless sarcasm. The hundreds of thousands of people present also looked at each other with bitter expressions. They could see the contempt in each other's eyes for Dugu Xianshao. A dignified supreme elder, a venerable realm expert, had done such a heartless scandal. Chapter 603. Dugu Xuanxiao's face turned even paler when he heard the chewing sounds of the soldiers below. Wow, brothers, today is really an explosive event. The patriarch of the Dugu family is not of the orthodox bloodline. He is actually an adopted son, a bastard. Grand Elder Xianshao even slept with his adopted son's concubine. Speaking of which, Grand Elder Xuanxiao's ability is really powerful. He can still make someone pregnant at such an old age. You've broadened our horizons. Ha ha ha, this is too exciting. Obscenities were like annoying flies that drilled into Dugu Xuanxiao's ears, making his head swell and about to explode. Damn it, damn it. Dugu Xianshao let out a low roar as boundless killing intent surged out of his body. Simon Laoqing, who was next to him, was sweating profusely. His heart was in his throat. Since Dugu Xianshao had dared to publicize his scandal, it was obvious that he would definitely go on a killing spree today. No one would be left alive. Not only would Qin Hao die, but Simon Laoqing would also be silenced. Grand Elder Xianshao, please calm down. Please calm down. Simon Laoqing's voice trembled with fear as he screamed in fright and fled into the distance. Run! No one will be able to escape today. Dugu Xianshao gathered his yuan qi and threw a purple ball of light into Shiping City. Boom! Amidst the deafening roar, the soldiers of Shiping City were annihilated by the yuan venerate powerhouse before they could react. Hundreds of thousands of people were wiped out. After the light ball exploded, the shockwave rose to a height of 100 zhang. It was like a tsunami in the sea. It rolled and spread in all directions crazily. The huge western Ping City, along with the civilians, the Pill Hall, and the Spirit Array Guild in the city, were all devoured. This earth-shattering blow reverberated for a long time before it stopped. After the smoke and dust settled, the most majestic city in the wasteland had disappeared. On the ground, there was a huge crater that spanned hundreds of thousands of miles. It was extremely shocking. This scene also caused Qin Hao and the others to be dumbstruck, cold sweat dripping down their faces. Ruthless. Really ruthless. Dugu Xianshao was extremely ruthless. Dugu Xianshao, you old bastard, you destroyed my Shiman clan city. You and I are absolutely irreconcilable. In the distance, there was a dot of light that disappeared into the horizon. As a king stage powerhouse, Simon Laoqing's fleeing speed could be said to be quite fast. Ordinary people would not be able to catch up to him. I've said it before. Today, no one will be able to escape from the old man alive. Even Wang Jie is no exception. Dugu Xianshao said fiercely. Whoosh! His figure disappeared into thin air. Then, another loud rumbling sound came from the end of the horizon. Qin Hao looked into the distance and saw a ball of purple yuan qi explode in the air where Simon Laoqing had fled. At this moment, Simon Laoqing's aura also disappeared. This is the innate ability of honorable realm experts. Within 1,000,000 li, they can tear apart space and arrive there in an instant. It's impossible to escape. Qin Hao smiled bitterly. Wang Jie and honorable realm experts were on completely different levels. Simon Laoqing thought that he was lucky to escape, but his head was kicked by a donkey. Kid, you're smart. You know how to run, but it's useless. Buzz. The space in front of Qin Hao fluctuated, and Dugu Xianshao, who had killed Simon Laoqing, appeared again. He was holding a head in his hand. It was Simon Louching's head, and its face was filled with fear. Dugu Xianshao raised his hand and threw the head into the huge sinkhole below. He looked coldly at Qin Hao and said, "It's your turn next. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Silence. The scene was dead silent. It was so quiet that it made people's hair stand on end, and a chill ran down their spine. Along with the cold wind blowing in the sky, Dugu Xuanxiao's murderous aura seemed to be able to freeze space. At this moment, Yudakan and Aku did not dare to breathe. They were so scared that their breathing seemed to have stopped. In front of an honorable realm expert, they were powerless to escape. Even the speed of the treasure ship was not as fast as Dugu Xuanxiao's teleportation. It seems that I can't return to Daliao. Then, let's fight. Yudakan recovered from his fear. He was the son of the Legion commander, so he had to die with dignity. Qin Hao. Aku looked at Qin Hao with despair in her eyes. There seemed to be a glimmer of hope in her despair. Qin Hao had always been able to create miracles. Today, she hoped that he had a way to subdue Dugu Xianshao. Perhaps this hope was simply nonsense. You won't die. I swear that I will never let my friends and family suffer any harm in front of me. Qin Hao let out a long sigh of relief and calmed the pressure in his heart. Then, a dark red flame suddenly shot at Dugu Xianshao from the tip of his finger. His attack was quite fast. Now is the time to fight. Qin Hao roared and activated the water wind step. He held the purple meteorite sword in his hand and attacked the opponent with an afterimage. This flame was the red lotus fire that he had been accumulating for a long time. It was the strongest red lotus fire that Qin Hao could condense at present. This sword strike was the fastest he had ever unleashed. It was as fast as a sword strike. 2 ultimate moves were instantly launched. Perhaps the chances of survival were slim, but Qin Hao had to give it a try. 9 Wolf Slaughter Fists. Void Blood Slaughter. At the same time, Yudakan and Aku used their strongest moves. Yudakan threw a punch forward. The fist light expanded and formed a giant wolf that was 10 feet long. It roared and pounced at Dugu Xianshao. With the Tianxia sacred sword in hand, Aku released a cloud of blood qi and hid herself in midair. As an elite assassin, she specialized in assassination. After disappearing, Aku attacked Dugu Xianshao at the fastest speed. The sharp Tianxia sword stabbed at the opponent's chest. Boom! Boom! On the other side, the flaming rock let out a long cry. 2 flaming blades flew out from under its wings and landed on Dugu Xuanxiao's head with the power to split the sky. No matter who it was, he had used all his strength. These ultimate moves overlapped violently on Dugu Xuanxiao's position. Normally, even a level 5 Yuan monarch would have been injured. Unfortunately, it was Dugu Xianshao today. Weak and fanciful. Only your movement technique and this sword move are barely enough to catch old man's attention. However, no matter how high your cultivation is, it's still futile. Dugu Xianshao waved the fly whisk in his hand indifferently. Buzz. A tornado appeared out of nowhere. It smashed Qin Hao's red lotus fire into pieces, it twisted Yudakan's giant wolf into nothingness, and the flaming rock's flame blade shattered into pieces. The 3 of them spurted blood at the same time. Qin Hao, who had rushed the fastest, was the first to be hit. Just like Aku, his body seemed to have fallen apart. Yudakan's body flew backward and smashed into the flaming rock. Then, the 3 of them and the beast fell powerlessly. This is strength. In front of great strength, you are nothing but a motley crew, ants. Kneel down for me. Dugu Xianshao stretched out his hand and a layer of purple light swelled under his palm. This purple light turned into a palm that was dozens of acres in size. Pressed down on the heads of Qin Hao and the other 2 like a heavy mountain and slapped down from the sky all the way to the ground. As soon as it came into contact with the flaming rock, the flames on its body dissipated and its feathers scattered. It turned into a dying sparrow. Chapter 604. This layer of purple palm light covered a wide area, enveloping even the treasured ship. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the dog spirit transformed into a giant beast and knocked the treasure ship away, saving Xiao Lei and Xiao Jun from being crushed to death. However, the dog spirit was also crushed to the ground. Brother Qin Hao! Young Master Qin Hao! Xiao Lei and Xiao Jun stood on the deck and shouted frantically. They saw Yudakan and Aku lying on the ground under the purple palm. It was hard to tell whether they were dead or alive. The dog spirit and the flaming rock shrunk into small beasts, unable to move. Qin Hao was the only one who clenched his teeth so hard that blue veins popped out on his forehead. He raised his hands high above his head to block the falling purple light. Yudakan and the others were only shaken by Dugu Xuanxiao's Yuan Qi and were now seriously injured. If it weren't for Qin Hao's support, this simple palm would have been enough to crush the dog spirit and the others. Hold on! Qin Hao shouted desperately, trying to wake everyone up. If they couldn't withstand this attack, Yudakan and the others would fall into a deep sleep and would probably never wake up again. In midair, Dugu Xianxiao didn't expect Qin Hao's physique to be so strong. Everyone fell, except for Qin Hao. Your bones are quite tough. Let's see how long you can last. Kneel. With such a shout, Dugu Xianxiao controlled the pressure and violently shook it. Bang! The purple light above Qin Hao's head became even heavier, causing his arms to creak under the pressure. His skin cracked, and blood flowed down his arms and onto his face. His legs sank deep into the ground, up to his knees. However, Qin Hao still didn't fall. He was still bitterly holding on. Good, good, good. You've got guts. Old man has a whole new level of respect for you. Duguji died in your hands. It's not unjust. Dugu Xianxiao was so angry that he laughed. He was so angry that his teeth hurt. Even Simon Laoqing couldn't block the attack of a venerable realm expert, but Qin Hao did. Qin Hao's body was even harder than steel, which made Dugu Xianxiao want to kill him even more. How should I kill you? Oh, by the way, didn't you laugh at old man's cuckold? Then, I'll reveal my true skills to blind your dog eyes. Now, I'll use the green hat source spirit to refine and absorb you. Your flesh and blood can become a part of the old man's strength. It can be considered a blessing. Dugu Xianxiao leisurely shook his head twice as he spoke. Then, he suddenly nodded to the ground. Whoosh! The green hat on his head flew down and transformed into a giant pot. With a bang, Qin Hao, the dog spirit, Yudakan, Aku, and the flaming rock were all thrown into the pot. Not only was Dugu Xianxiao the #1 expert in the wasteland, but he also possessed a source spirit. His source spirit was the green hat on his head. This green hat was incredible. It could be used as a weapon or a defense. It could also be used like alchemy. It could be used to refine people alive. After refining them, Dugu Xianxiao would absorb their power. Dugu Xianxiao was really terrifying. Buzz! The purple light above Qin Hao's head dissipated and was replaced by a green hat. The moment the hat came down, a terrible power was produced inside. This power made Qin Hao's blood boil uncontrollably. Qin Hao's power was quickly draining. Ah! Woof, woof, roar. Immediately, the delirious Yudakan let out a scream. His power was taken away. His flesh and blood were shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. Including the dog spirit, Aku, and the flaming rock, they were all being refined by the other party. What the hell is this thing? We must break it as soon as possible. Aku screamed in horror and struggled to get up. However, his whole body was filled with a sense of powerlessness. Ha ha ha! You can only wait to be slaughtered by the old man's green hat. Even a 5th-level Yuan Venerate won't be able to escape after being trapped inside. Accept your fate. Dugu Xianxiao laughed crazily with a deranged look on his face. As the hat left the crown of his head, revealing his large bald head, he was bald. Of course, He knew the function of his green hat like the back of his hand. When the living thing inside was refined, the pain was worse than being skinned. In the end, even the blood, flesh, and bones would be converted into his energy. Dugu Xianshao is extremely abnormal. He's actually a source spirit powerhouse. This is good too. I believe the old demon will be satisfied this time. Although Qin Hao was weak, his fighting spirit hadn't diminished. Just now, he had been considering whether to release the old demon and seize the other party's body. After all, the old demon was dying. Even if he didn't succeed in the end, a dying old demon could still cripple Dugu Xianshao if he went crazy. Now, it seemed that Dugu Xuanxiao's body was the most suitable for the old demon's body. It was also worth Qin Hao's desperate attempt. Success or failure depends on this. Combine the power of 2 thearchs and run, old demon. Qin Hao screamed like a madman as he took out the blood jade from his interspatial ring. Then, he focused his mind and mobilized all of his mental power to launch an emperor-level soul attack, fiercely bombarding Dugu Xuanxiao's green hat. Buzz! At that moment, ripples appeared on the green hat. Dugu Xianshao, who was in the sky, didn't feel good either. He felt as if a thorn had suddenly pierced his head, causing him to howl in pain. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Qin Hao threw out the purple meteorite sword in his hand and barely managed to break open a gap in the green hat's origin soul. Whoosh! Qin Hao threw the blood jade toward Dugu Xuanxiao's face. Do you want to die? Do you want to die? You're the Blood Emperor. Don't let me down. Qin Hao shouted loudly as he spat out a mouthful of blood on his chest and knelt on the ground on one knee. The spirit attack just now was comparable to half of the peak spirit power of his previous life. It was the limit of Qin Hao's current limit. Even if his body was soaked in the blood pool and was formed from 10,000 spirits, it was still on the verge of collapse. And this spirit attack was enough to cause 10 seconds of mental confusion on Dugu Xianshao. It was also the old demon's only chance to seize the other party's body. Qin Hao tried his best to create this slim chance of survival. Finally, he fell down beside Aku in exhaustion. Just like Yu Dakin, his body began to shrink. Within a blink of an eye, he was reduced to skin and bones. His black hair turned white. After all, Dugu Xuanxiao's green hat origin soul was still trapping everyone. If the old demon failed to seize the body, Qin Hao and the others would be consigned to eternal damnation in the next second. Break for me. Dugu Xuanxiao's consciousness was incomparably chaotic. This sudden spirit attack caused unimaginable damage to him, almost tearing his brain apart. If it weren't for his rock-solid will to take revenge, Qin Hao would have turned him into a lunatic. Although his brain was in chaos, he still saw Qin Hao throw an unknown object. Dugu Xianshao instinctively felt that it wasn't a good thing. He waved the whisk in his hand and burst out with a wisp of energy. With a ping sound, the blood jade was shattered in the air. But at the same time the blood jade shattered, a drop of incomparably smelly pus flew right into his nose. This drop of pus was the remnant soul of the old demon that had shrunk into the blood jade. As soon as the remnant soul came into contact with Dugu Xianshao, it immediately spread along his face like an expanding blood net. It went along his nostrils, eyes, ears, and mouth and drilled into Dugu Xuanxiao's body. It was like a maggot that couldn't be shaken off. Chapter 605. He felt as though there were billions of ants rushing into his body. The ants were crazily gnawing at his soul and devouring his will. They filled his blood and filled every single meridian. He wanted to gather his mind and counterattack, but his mind was in chaos. He couldn't concentrate and could only desperately hold his head and scream. A quarter of an hour, half an hour. Time gradually passed. Just as Qin Hao and the others were about to lose all signs of life, bang! The huge green hat above their heads collapsed, and the life force that was extracted returned to their bodies. In an instant, Qin Hao and the others' bodies returned to their original state. Even so, everyone was tortured beyond recognition and exhausted to the extreme. But at this moment, Qin Hao didn't relax his vigilance. His right hand trembled as he reached forward and desperately held the purple meteorite sword. Because at this moment, a figure floated down from the sky and was walking towards their positions step by step. It was Dugu Xianshao. Dugu Xianshao stopped struggling. His eyes were empty and his footsteps were staggered. His gaze was like that of a walking corpse. Qin Hao didn't know if the old demon had succeeded in taking over his body. If Dugu Xuanxiao's soul hadn't been annihilated, he could easily kill everyone. Da-da-da. The other party's footsteps came to Qin Hao's side and stopped. Qin Hao raised his head with difficulty and met the other party's eyes. Dugu Xuanxiao's empty eyes suddenly flashed with a bloody light and regained their vigor. His powerful aura rose again, and he revealed a strange grin. "Who are you?" Seeing this grin, Qin Hao's heart sank and he was ready to make a move. "I'm the second master." "Ha ha ha, old pervert, I succeeded. I succeeded in taking over your body." Ha ha ha. In the next second, Dugu Xuanxiao's grin disappeared and was replaced by a wretched look. Clang! Qin Hao threw the purple meteorite sword in his hand to the ground and lay flat on his back. He looked at the blue sky and white clouds and heaved a sigh of relief. This battle was fierce to the extreme. It was as if he had walked through hell. Fortunately, Dugu Xianshao was successfully taken over and his venerable realm's strength was reduced to the old demons. "So be it. Is it fun to scare me?" Qin Hao sneered. He could not help but move his mind. Roar! The old demon suddenly hugged his head and screamed. He had succeeded in taking over the body, but his soul was still restricted by Qin Hao. "I'm too excited. Master, you don't know this, but the reason why this old bastard's fertility increased was because he cultivated a blood art. His physique is extremely compatible with mine. Moreover, he has a source spirit which is simply too good. Where's my green hat?" The old demon wanted to play a joke on Qin Hao, but now he was much more honest. After he calmed his excited heart, he felt a chill run down his spine. Only then did he remember that awesome green hat source spirit. With a thought, the old demon surged his yuan qi and attempted to summon it. In the blink of an eye, countless green dots of light gathered above the old demon's head and gradually condensed into a pointed hat. It was exactly the same as the hat that Qin Hao had just used. It was placed back on the old demon's head. Ha ha ha! This feeling is too wonderful. This old pervert also has a source spirit. The old demon was very excited. In his previous life, he was the same as Qin Hao. He also didn't have a source spirit. Today, not only did he succeed in taking over the body, he also obtained a strange source spirit. This green hat also had the ability to swallow and refine. It was simply tailor-made for the old demon. "Little master, thank you. Thank you for giving me a second life. This old pervert is very grateful." As he spoke, the old demon knelt in front of Qin Hao. He was so excited that tears flowed out of his eyes. If it wasn't for Qin Hao, he would still be trapped in the devil refining gourd, unable to see the light of day for the rest of his life. If it wasn't for Qin Hao, his wish of being reborn would never have been realized. If it wasn't for Qin Hao risking his life to launch a spiritual attack, the old demon wouldn't have been able to find a body that was so compatible with him. Now that he had really come back to life, it wouldn't be a problem for him to extend his lifespan by another 1,000 years. It's just a pity that this body has just been taken over. I can't perfectly unleash the power of a venerate. At best, I can only unleash the power of a level 5 Yuan monarch. The old demon sighed. This was the only flaw in this otherwise perfect situation. However, he wasn't discouraged. As long as he was given some time to completely refine the body, it wouldn't be a problem for him to return to being a level 5 Yuan venerate. It wouldn't take too long even if he recovered the cultivation of the Blood Emperor from his previous life. In this life, the old demon decided to stay by Qin Hao's side and serve him well. You should be content, Qin Hao said enviously. When he had been reborn, the young master of the Qin family had been a good-for-nothing with no strength at all. His current achievements had been honed bit by himself. In comparison, the old demon was really lucky to have a level 5 Yuan monarch cultivation and an origin soul when he had just taken over his body. Meanwhile, Udakan had swallowed 2 bottles of elixir pills and regained some energy. He was looking at the old demon in astonishment. He still didn't understand what was going on. The terrifying Dugu Xianshao seemed to have changed into a different person. He followed Qin Hao's lead obediently and was full of respect. What are you looking at? Take your eyes off Second Master's hat. The old demon snorted in dissatisfaction and helped Qin Hao up respectfully. Blood Ancestor, are you really the Blood Ancestor? Have you been reborn? As a descendant of the Blood Ancestor, Aku was naturally sensitive to the aura of the old demon. Well, you did well, little girl. I will forgive you for not calling for reinforcements at the Broken Dragon Cliff. However, your father will have to suffer my punishment later, the old demon said in a low, muffled voice. Dugu Xuanxiao's aura was terrifying. All right, we need to leave this place quickly and return to Luo Shui, Qin Hao said as he looked up at the treasure ship in the sky. The entire disappearance of Western Fair City must have alarmed the 3 aristocratic families. However, the teleportation array in Western Fair City had been destroyed as well, so they hadn't rushed over yet. Of course, with the old demon holding the fort, Qin Hao wasn't afraid of them at all. The old demon was a powerhouse with an origin soul. Even if he could only exert the strength of a level 5 Yuan monarch, he might not necessarily lose to Shiman Gang, who was a peak Yuan monarch. Qin Hao wanted to return as soon as possible because he had missed the start of the school term. Buzz. Just as everyone was returning to the treasure ship, there was suddenly a strong fluctuation in the space above. It was exactly the same as when Dugu Xianshao had torn the space apart. This meant that another supremacy-level Almighty had arrived. Moreover, the power of the fluctuation this time was even greater than Dugu Xuanxiao's aura. Its strength was above Dugu Xuanxiao's. Qin Hao and the others couldn't help but change their expressions drastically. Qin Hao was already exhausted from the battle with Dugu Xianshao, so he didn't have the strength to launch a spiritual attack. Moreover, the old demon had already obtained a body, so there was no way he could possess it a second time. The heavens want me to die! Udakan roared in grief and indignation. He thought that he had escaped this calamity, but he hadn't expected that the enemy would come again. His aura was even stronger than Dugu Xuanxiao's. This time, he was afraid that he really wouldn't be able to return to Daliao. He would be buried in this trashy western Liang. At this moment, Dugu Xianshao, who was the incarnation of the old demon, secretly held the whisk in his hand. His head began to sway, ready to take the green hat on his head at any time. Buzz. The distorted ripples in the sky suddenly shook. Immediately, a figure descended from the sky. He was very short and had a weathered face. However, after seeing the other party's face, Qin Hao's tensed heart was completely relieved. The other party wasn't an enemy, but one of the 4 great academies of the Luo Shui Empire, Yao Lao, the deputy dean of Qiangbin. Chapter 606. Thank you, Brother Yu, for escorting me all the way. Qin Hao will remember this. Oh, this is my senior. We'll meet again in Daliao in 2 years. Noticing that Yao Lao's expression was very abnormal, Qin Hao cupped his hands and bowed to Udakan, meaning to bid farewell. Rubbing his nose, Qin Hao raised his head and shouted, I've had enough fun. I'll have to trouble you to take me back. These are all my friends. We're going back to Luo Shui together. By the way, why didn't you come earlier? Qin Hao was a little disgruntled as he started to complain about Yao Lao. If he had come half a step earlier, Dugu Xianshao wouldn't have been so arrogant. Do you think it's easy for me to find you? I've been searching for your aura all over the world. Cut the crap and come with me. Yao Lao's expression was very nervous. With a wave of his hand, a monstrous gale was set off. Apart from Udakan, Qin Hao and the others, including the big ship above, were all swept into the spatial turbulence. With a whung sound, the sky trembled and everyone disappeared. We'll meet again someday. Udakan stood alone in the empty battlefield. He didn't even have time to react. In the end, Qin Hao and the others were all taken away. Udakan pitifully looked at the great rock that had turned into the size of a sparrow. He picked it up and protected it in his palm. Then, he spread his wings and flew in the direction of the northern border. This battle was indeed dangerous. Fortunately, Qin Hao returned to Luoshui safely. Then, it was time for him to report back to Shaohan and Duan Ziju. He had a plan in mind as to how to report back to them. At the same time, Udakan was also looking forward to meeting Qin Hao again. Brother Qin Hao is not only upright and loyal, but his background also seems to be quite extraordinary. Udakan sighed and disappeared in the sky. Luoshui Empire. In the blink of an eye, Qin Hao returned to the familiar imperial city of Luoshui. It had to be said that the teleportation ability of a venerable was awesome. It would take 10 days to half a month to cover such a long distance by flying on a treasure ship. In front of Yao Lao, it only took a single thought. However, they did not return to Qiangbin immediately. Instead, Yao Lao landed quietly in a remote corner of the city. Who are you? After Yao Lao landed, Ying Rui's gaze swept past Aku, Xiaolei, and Xiaojun one by one. His gaze contained a trace of pressure that made people not dare to look at him directly. These people looked unfamiliar. Yao Lao had never seen them around Qin Hao, so of course he wouldn't bring strangers back to the academy. However, upon seeing the old demon, who had transformed into Dugu Xianshao, Yao Lao couldn't help but feel a little apprehensive. The other party's aura was also that of a Yuan Venerate powerhouse. Moreover, at this moment, the old demon was also looking at Yao Lao with a solemn face. He was not affected by the other party's aura at all, as if he was secretly competing with him. I am his slave. The old demon lowered his voice and said abruptly. Crack. This gave Yao Lao a fright. His heart pounded violently as he hurriedly covered his chest with his hand. His eyes were filled with shock. Slave? A Yuan Venerate powerhouse was actually Qin Hao's slave? His ancestors. What shocking news. Oh. Don't be surprised. He is just that straightforward. Qin Hao rolled his eyes at the old demon, indicating that he should not speak nonsense. Humph. Upon sensing Yao Lao's shock, the old demon flicked the fly whisk in his hand and gently rubbed the green hat on his head. His face was full of pride, as if becoming Qin Hao's slave was something that brought honor to his ancestors. I am Aku. Xiaolei. Xiaojun. Greetings, old senior of the Luoshui Empire. We are Qin Hao's friends. Aku, Xiaolei, and Xiaojun said in unison. Unlike the arrogant old demon, they bowed timidly to Yao Lao. They were in the Luoshui Imperial City, which was an unfamiliar place. As far as the eye could see, this place was too luxurious and filled with tall buildings. Yao Lao's body was filled with a powerful aura. Even Aku, who was a heavenly saint, found it difficult to adapt in a short time. Old demon! Qin Hao waved his hand at the old demon and took out a purple gold token. Take my token and head to the High Clan trade firm with Aku, Xiaolei, and Xiaojun. I will look for you in a few days. Qin Hao could clearly sense that Yao Lao had something important to say. However, it was inconvenient to say it in front of the old demon and the others. How can this be? I have to protect you, I am your slave. The old demon was not willing to leave Qin Hao. He had just obtained a body and had a green hat source spirit, so he was incomparably arrogant. He had to stay by Qin Hao's side to act cool. Quickly take them away. Qin Hao's face sunk. All right, but master, if you need anything, send a signal to this old vulgar man. This old vulgar man can instantly return to your side and sweep away all obstacles for you, letting them die without a burial ground. The old demon did not dare disobey. He took the purple gold token and reluctantly left with Ah Ku and the others. He did not even have time to show off before he was chased away. Although the old demon could not display 100% of Dugu Xuanxiao's strength, he was still a supreme expert and had the ability to tear space. Only compared to Yao Lao, the old demon's spatial tear was much smaller. Big brother Qin Hao, you have to come and see us. I'm a little scared. Before Xiaojun left, he turned around to look at Qin Hao with a pitiful expression. Don't be afraid. The people of the Hai Family Trading Company will take good care of you. Qin Hao gave him an encouraging look. He knew that the Luoshui Imperial City was too unfamiliar and scared Xiaojun. After all, this place was more than 100 times more prosperous than the wasteland. What exactly happened? Can you tell me now? After everyone left, Qin Hao looked at Yao Lao with a serious expression. Brat, are you mentally prepared? Yao Lao asked. Qin Hao nodded. Are you sure? I'm sure. All right, I'll take you to a place. However, you're covered in injuries. Yao Lao shook his head and waved his hand. A surge of primordial qi swept out and hit Qin Hao's body. Suddenly, Qin Hao was wrapped in a sacred purple light. In the purple light, the wounds on his body melted at a speed visible to the naked eye. He was instantly full of energy as if he had been revived. Squeak! As the purple light dissipated, Qin Hao clenched his fists. The fatigue of hiding in the wasteland and fighting for many days was swept away. At this moment, he was in a better state than taking elixirs. Yao Lao was indeed an alchemist. Now, follow me to the palace. Yao Lao grabbed Qin Hao's shoulder and turned into a stream of light, flying straight to Yilong Yuan's palace. Go to the palace? Qin Hao could not help but be surprised. Xuehan. Something big happened to him, Yao Lao said in a heavy tone. Crack. Qin Hao felt as if a thunderbolt had struck his heart, and his face suddenly turned pale. Chapter 607. Before Yi Xuehan started school, an accident had already happened. For half a month, Yao Lao was so anxious that he searched everywhere for traces of Qin Hao. At present, only Qin Hao could save Yi Xuehan. It was just that the wasteland was too far away from the Luoshui Empire, so Yao Lao's thoughts could not spread to the wasteland. When Qin Hao arrived at Shiping City, Yao Lao had just felt a little. Especially after Qin Hao erupted with all his vitality, the strong and familiar aura confirmed Yao Lao's guess. He was preparing to tear the space to teleport. Helpless, Qin Hao was once again trapped by Dugu Xuanxiao's green hat, completely isolating the eruption of aura. At that moment, Yao Lao lost the specific location of Qin Hao and could not teleport. Presumably, Dugu Xuanxiao's hat source spirit also had some array effects. In fact, Qin Hao's guess was right. Later, the old demon also discovered the special ability of the green hat, but this was a story for later. The strongest country in western Liang, Luoshui Empire, Imperial Palace. Inside the Imperial Study, Qin Hao coldly stood below, looking at a handsome middle-aged man sitting on the dragon table. The middle-aged man's eyebrows were exactly the same as Yi Xuehan's, but he was much more stable than the other party. His aura was thousands of times more majestic, exuding the aura of an emperor. Even if Yao Lao was the vice president of Qiangbin, in front of Yilong Yuan, he could only stand and did not dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. This was the prestige of the #1 expert in Western Liang. Yi Longyuan was a peak emperor-level expert. When you saw my appearance, you must have been very surprised and shocked. At the same time, your heart is filled with doubts. Yi Longyuan was wearing transparent pajamas like cicada feathers, looking very haggard. He rubbed his temples with both hands and tried to speak to Qin Hao in a gentle tone. Because the junior below was his son's good brother. Moreover, only Qin Hao could save his son. I'm really surprised, although I don't understand why. But come to think of it, you should be Shui Han's biological father. Qin Hao said indifferently, neither servile nor overbearing. What an interesting lad. Yi Longyuan showed some appreciation, forced a smile, and nodded. I am indeed Shui Han's father, but I am a very incompetent father. Or do you think you have the ability to occupy Jiang State, Beiwu State, Fengyu State, and Yongzhan State? Including the northwestern region that originally belonged to Luo Shui, there are about 300 of them. Affiliated states? Yi Longyuan snorted coldly, full of arrogance. Those lands were originally attached to the Luo Shui Empire. Although Yi Longyuan didn't care about them, it wasn't something that could be taken away from him just because he wanted to. Even the hundreds of small countries that were dependent on Sky Dragon were rudely put under the jurisdiction of Daqin by Qin Hao. Did he really think that Buxiangchen's family had left him alone to thank Qin Hao for his kindness? Wrong. The reason why Qin Hao could annex the affiliated states of the two big countries without bloodshed was that Yi Longyuan had secretly opened up all the connections for Qin Hao. He even issued an edict for this reason, acknowledging the existence of Daqin in western Liang. Even Luo Shui, the strongest country in western Liang, had acknowledged the existence of Daqin. Of course, Western Zhao State, Great Wei, and the Rising Sky Dragon State did not dare to say a word. If he didn't, wouldn't he look down on Yi Longyuan? Wouldn't Yi Longyuan's words be nonsense? The reason why he was so protective of Qin Hao was that the other party was his son's good brother. Thank you for your care. I'll remember it. Qin Hao cast a grateful look. Yi Longyuan was indeed a good person. He was willing to give up his territory for his son. This was absolutely impossible in front of other emperors. It was not until today that Qin Hao understood that Luo Shui's goodwill was not because of Yao Lao, but because of Emperor Longyuan. Don't be in a hurry to thank me. Now it's time for you to repay me. Speaking of which, I should cut you into pieces first. Open it and see for yourself. Yi Longyuan picked up a rough wooden box on the dragon table and threw it into Qin Hao's arms. At this moment, Yi Longyuan's face was full of strong anger. The anger came from his stomach. Qin Hao immediately opened it to take a look. As a result, he was absent-minded at first glance. There was a finger inside. It was cut off from Shui Han's hand. Yi Longyuan said hoarsely. His fists were full of blue veins. Bang! Qin Hao grabbed the wooden box with his powerful palm and crushed it into pieces. He raised his cold eyes and roared, "Who did this to Duan Shuihan's finger?" Qin Hao's shout was extremely loud. His outburst of emotions startled Yi Longyuan, who was sitting upright. He felt that there was an emperor's aura surging towards him. This aura was unbearably majestic, causing him to feel somewhat deranged. Yuan Tianzai, Yi Longyuan let out a long breath. He was very satisfied with Qin Hao's reaction. From this, it could be seen that he did treat his son as a good brother. You must be familiar with this name, right? He continued to ask. It's the ancestor of the Yuan Hui family of Tianlong country, Yuan Hui's grandfather. Qin Hao was gnashing his teeth in hatred. But he could not figure out why Yuan Tianzai was still alive. After the Battle of the Crimson Peak Mountain Canyon, Qin Hao had wiped out the elites of the Yuan family. The Tianlong royal family should have taken this opportunity to wipe out the Yuan family. That old bastard ran away by luck. The whole Yuan family was wiped out, but he ran away alone. I'll kill his ancestors. Seeing Qin Hao's confusion, Yi Longyuan replied and slapped the dragon table fiercely. The dragon table made of purple gold was punched into a hole by his palm, and he did not use any of his primordial qi. He ran away? Qin Hao frowned. Yes, he ran away. At this time, Yao Lao said in confusion, but I don't understand why he didn't go to Daqin first and wipe out the Qin family. Instead, he sneaked to Luo Shui and took Shuihan away when he was not paying attention. What do you mean by running to my house first and wiping out the Qin family first? Qin Hao rolled his eyes at Yao Lao. If it were not for their friendship, he would have scolded this old man. However, Qin Hao could completely imagine that it was not that Yuan Tianzai did not go to Daqin, but that he did. However, after Daqin was established, the Qin family moved to Jinling City and designated Jinling City as the imperial city of Daqin. Jinling City was the home of the Sword Young Master's family, and there were many experts there. With the protection of the Sword Young Master's grandfather and father, how could Yuan Tianzai have the chance to attack? Therefore, Qin Hao expected that Yuan Tianzai would target the people closest to him. Coincidentally, it was Yi Shuihan and Xiaogua. Xiaogua was also in Jinling City, so Yuan Tianzai did not have the chance to attack. Then, the unlucky person became Yi Shuihan. I really can't imagine. What kind of medicine did he take? How dare he attack your son? How dare he attack the only prince of Luoshui's emperor? This old bastard Yuan Tianzai really dared to do it. He is simply courting death. For some reason, Qin Hao suddenly wanted to laugh. Although he did not have a conscience after seeing Yi Longyuan's dark face, he really wanted to laugh. Person whose whole family was wiped out. His son, grandson, and branch were all eradicated. He has nothing. He is not even afraid of death. He only wants revenge. Tell me, is there anything in this world that he does not dare to do? Chapter 608. Qin Hao nodded speechlessly. Yuan Tianzai had no intention of keeping Yi Longyuan's son alive. He wasn't even afraid of death, so there was nothing he didn't dare to do. It's my fault for being careless. That mad dog took advantage of me and made Shuihan suffer. Yi Longyuan was full of self-blame and frustration. He had always thought that Yi Shuihan was safe in the Luo Shui imperial city. No one would dare to harm his son under his nose, not to mention that Old Man Huang was secretly protecting Yi Shuihan. Old Man Huang's son had been severely injured by Yuan Tianzai. If Yao Lao hadn't found him in time, he would have died long ago. Now, the only person who could save Yi Shuihan was Qin Hao. Rather than saving him, it was more accurate to say that Qin Hao had to use himself to exchange for Yi Shuihan's life. Yuan Tianzai only wanted Qin Hao to die, and to die a horrible death. Where did he want to meet me? Qin Hao asked. He had already guessed that Yuan Tianzai was taking revenge on him. After kidnapping Shuihan, Yuan Tianzai hid in the dark night forest and said that he wanted you to go alone. If you don't, you can kill Shuihan with a single thought. Yi Longyuan's eyes twitched as he explained. Yuan Tianzai was very smart. He knew that no matter where he hid, he wouldn't be safe. Yi Longyuan was an Emperor Realm expert. A single sweep of his consciousness was enough to cover the entire Luo Shui Empire. At that time, he would be able to capture Yuan Tianzai's location and save Yi Shuihan effortlessly. However, Yi Longyuan couldn't do anything to him if he hid in the Dark Night Forest. The Dark Night Forest was an extremely mysterious and dangerous place. It was second only to the Exploding Flame Mountain Range and the Medicine Valley. It was located 100,000 li north of the city, very close to the Starry Moon Academy. The reason why the Starry Moon Academy was located north of the Imperial City was to guard against the demonic beasts in the Dark Night Forest. For the sake of Shuihan's safety, I can't take the risk to accompany you. No one can. So, I'm sorry, kid. Forgive me for my helplessness. For the sake of his son, Yi Long Yuan could only let Qin Hao go alone. Regarding this, Yao Lao was helpless. After all, Yi Shuihan was weak. If he fell into Yuan Tianzai's hands, he could kill Yi Shuihan 10,000 times with just a flick of his little finger. If that's the case, I'll head to the Forest of Darkness immediately. Goodbye. Since it was related to his brother's life, Qin Hao turned around and left without even frowning. Wait! Yi Long Yuan was shocked. He did not expect Qin Hao to be so straightforward. Are you really willing to exchange your life for Shui Han's return? He is not only your son, but also my brother. Qin Hao turned around and smiled, his expression resolute. Kid, think carefully. Yuan Tianzai is just an ant in the eyes of me and His Majesty. But in front of you, he is the unshakable heavens. The difference between your cultivation is too great. If you go, you will die without a doubt. Yao Lao secretly clenched his fists, struggling in his heart. Qin Hao was his student and a young man he admired. And then? Qin Hao asked indifferently. Was there any other way? Maybe you think I'm heartless, but I'm not heartless. I have a peerless Yuan burst pill here. After consuming it, it can raise the cultivation of a mortal saint by 1 realm. Listen carefully, an entire realm. As he spoke, Yi Long Yuan took out a blood-red medicinal pill that was so red that it penetrated purple. It emitted an incomparably lush medicinal fragrance. He knew that Qin Hao's methods were extraordinary. During the 4 Great Academies' New Star competition, Yi Long Yuan had seen Qin Hao's performance. What he meant was that even if he couldn't accompany Qin Hao, he had to consider the other party's safety and make all the necessary preparations. With your cultivation of a 5th-rank mortal saint, consuming this pill will allow you to erupt with the power of a 5th-rank profound sage. Of course, it will only last for a quarter of an hour, and there will be repercussions. You won't be able to move for a month. Yuan Tianzai is an 8th-rank profound sage, so you might not be able to escape death. But in addition to this peerless Yuan burst pill, I will give you another one. I will also give you some defensive saint artifacts and magical treasures. Yi Long Yuan explained. He shook his spatial ring, preparing to take out some equipment. As long as Qin Hao exchanged Yi Shuihan from Yuan Tianzai's hands and could last for 5 breaths without dying. No, 3 breaths would be enough. At that time, Yi Long Yuan would be able to break through the haze of the dark night forest, lock onto Qin Hao's position, and directly teleport over. No, no, no. If even you can think of it, how could Yuan Tianzai not think of it? Qin Hao shook his head. Yuan Tianzai definitely wouldn't let him bring his spatial ring over. Also, preparing these equipment and pills is completely unnecessary. Yuan Tianzai won't even last for a breath in my hands. Qin Hao said. Crack. Rumble. Yi Long Yuan and Yao Lao both glared at him. Ignorant, truly ignorant. Are you crazy, brat? Kid, your tone is too arrogant. You should know that you're just a trash mortal saint. Even if you won the Rising Star competition and defeated Tian Shucha's grandson, it doesn't change the fact that you're just an ant mortal saint. Quickly recognize the truth, Diao Si. Give him a life-saving magical treasure. Yao Lao pointed at Qin Hao. They hadn't seen each other for more than 2 months, and this kid had become arrogant again. In this regard, Yi Long Yuan also acted like a child who couldn't be taught. Well, if that's the case, I'll accept your magical treasure and the energy explosion pill. Qin Hao turned around and took the energy explosion pill. Then, he threw a pile of small items that Yi Long Yuan had poured on the dragon table into his spatial ring. How can I not accept the gift when you're forcing me to accept it? In the end, Qin Hao cupped his hands and bowed. I'm going with the attitude of death. If I really die, I hope that your majesty will take care of Daqin. In addition, give them some land, such as the more than 50 countries in the Bailing mountain range in the west of Luoshui. No problem. Yi Longyuan nodded and agreed. His heart was boiling with blood, and he was extremely touched. Seeing Qin Hao going to die, he also felt very uncomfortable in his heart. His son was his son, but other people's children were not children, right? But he had no choice, because the news of Yi Shuihan's disappearance had not reached Xinque's ears yet. Otherwise, if that pancake-selling woman found out, she would definitely tear Yi Longyuan's face apart and run to the palace to fight with him. And Yao Lao, if I die, please don't take away my spot to enter the Medicine Valley. Let Guadi go on my behalf. Of course, if I don't die, you have to give me another spot, Qin Hao said with a chuckle. That's not a problem at all. Yao Lao also nodded, 2 drops of tears falling from the corner of his eyes. This kid was loyal and righteous, and the old man's heart was deeply touched. I'll go too. Buzz. Qin Hao spread out a pair of fire wings and flew out of the imperial study. The aura of a heavenly saint expert was released from his body, causing the sky above the palace to buzz. F***CK. This. What's going on? Yi Longyuan was dumbfounded. I don't know either, but judging from the strength of that brat's origin chi, he has reached the level of a 5th stage heavenly saint. Yao Lao looked at Yi Longyuan in a daze, his face filled with disbelief. 2 months ago, Qin Hao was only a mortal saint. In the blink of an eye, he had become a heavenly saint? And that flame aura, it was not the primordial fire of a cultivator at all. But what exactly was that thing? F***CK, my exploding yuan pill and immortal binding lock. Qin Hao, I'm not done with you. Yi Longyuan was stunned for a long time before he reacted. He cursed and kicked the table, turning it upside down. He had been tricked by Qin Hao. Qin Hao had broken through to the heavenly saint realm, yet he was still full of nonsense and had an attitude of death. Poor Yi Longyuan had to give up his land and lose a bunch of treasures. Although he was unwilling in his heart, at this moment, Yao Lao and Yi Longyuan both revealed smiles on their faces. Because if Qin Hao went, the one who would die would most likely be Yuan Tianzai. They lamented that Qin Hao's growth speed was too ridiculous. Dark Night Forest. It was shrouded in fog all year round, like poisonous smoke that would not dissipate. Regardless of whether it was the plants or animals in the forest, they were all dark attribute species. It was difficult for living people to get close. The air inside was incomparably turbid and filled with a moldy smell. Ancient trees covered the sky, so it was named Dark Night and Forest of Death. Only cultivators who had reached a certain level of cultivation could avoid being corroded by the fog. It was an extremely dangerous place. After leaving the Luoshui Imperial Palace, Qin Hao took out a broom from his interspatial ring in order to not exhaust his origin chi and clamped it under his crotch. This broom was obtained from Wei de Bao. It was originally a rare flying artifact of Murong Zijuan of northern Yin. Riding this broom, Qin Hao realized that it was extraordinary. Its speed was quite fast, not much slower than a King-grade treasure ship flying at full speed. The journey of 100,000 miles did not take much time. Qin Hao had already landed at the edge of the Dark Night Forest. "Brother dog, can you smell the cold water?" Qin Hao asked softly. The dog spirit had suffered heavy injuries from Dugu Xuanxiao's palm strike, so it retreated back into the interspatial ring to recuperate. Qin Hao was naturally an expert when it came to identifying the smell of medicinal herbs. However, when it came to tracking people's aura, it was not as sharp as the dog spirit's nose. Roar, woo, woo. The dog spirit's whimpering came from the interspatial ring, which meant that it could not smell anything. It seems that the fog in the Dark Night Forest is indeed a very evil thing. Since that was the case, Qin Hao chose to walk forward. With the first step, faint sparks spread out from his body, isolating him from the fog. The interior of the Dark Night Forest was very dim. One could only see about 5 meters in front of them. Within this range, There were wisps of decaying black smoke that looked like ghosts drifting back and forth. It made one's hair stand on end. Not long after Qin Hao stepped in, he was immediately attacked by many dark creatures. Most of them were dark beasts, but there were also some strange man-eating vines and man-eating flowers. But in the end they all died to the red lotus flame. Yuan Tianzai, I'm Qin Hao. I'm here. Qin Hao shouted as he walked. His voice rumbled in the dark space, not afraid of attracting high-level demonic beasts. As he went deeper and deeper, climbing over mountain after mountain, his expression turned grave. The ranks of the dark creatures he encountered were correspondingly higher. On the other hand, Qin Hao dispersed the red lotus flame and used ordinary yuan qi to block the fog. If his cultivation was too strong, it would cause Yuan Tianzai to be wary, and it would be inconvenient for him to save Dugu Xianshao. Qin Hao decided to play the pig to eat the tiger. As he went deeper, Qin Hao gathered his emperor-grade mental strength and vaguely sensed the existence of a special aura. It was not the dark creatures of the dark night forest, but the aura of a living person. Chapter 609. On the other hand, Qin Hao's every move was exposed to the enemy's eyes. He saw an old man sitting cross-legged in a swamp and behind a small hill. On a small open ground that was rarely seen, there was an old man sitting cross-legged. The old man was dressed in extraordinary attire. Judging from the material of his clothes, they must have been very expensive, indicating that he used to have a high status. But after escaping from the Sky Dragon Kingdom and hiding in the Forest of Gloom for half a month, Yuan Tianzai's clothes were torn and tattered. Strips of cloth hung from his body, making him look like a beggar. He hadn't washed his hair for a long time, so it was dirty and messy. "Little bastard, you're finally here." Yuan Tianzai gnashed his teeth, hatred shooting out of his triangular eyes. In front of him floated a giant bronze mirror as tall as a man. This bronze mirror was called the Mirror of Yin-Yang Creation, a decent low-grade saint artifact. Although it didn't have any offensive power, its peeping ability was quite strong. At that moment, Qin Hao's figure was reflected in the Yin-Yang Creation mirror. Due to the distance, Qin Hao's figure was hazy and blurry. "Ah, mirror, mirror, make his face clearer so that I can see it more clearly and make it easier for old man to vent his hatred." Yuan Tianzai chanted an incantation, clasped his hands together, and made a bunch of messy hand seals. Then he shouted, "Light up! Buzz!" This magic mirror, ah no, the mirror of good fortune shone brightly, and the image on it immediately became clear. Qin Hao's handsome appearance was revealed without a doubt. He had a refined ponytail, a fair face, a straight nose, and a well-proportioned figure. "You're even more handsome than old man when he was young. If I don't kill you, who am I supposed to kill?" Yuan Tianzai roared in jealousy. At this moment, Qin Hao in the mirror had entered the swamp and was being attacked by the dark creatures of the swamp. These creatures of darkness were like toads. Their bodies were huge, even bigger than coconut. Their appearances were very strange. They had 3 legs and 1 eye. The eye grew on their forehead like a light bulb. At this moment, countless toads continuously emerged from the quagmire. The eyes on their heads lit up one after another, shooting out rays of poison from their eyes. They were like black arrows, attacking Qin Hao in a dense pack. Qin Hao resisted with incomparable difficulty. Resisting was very difficult, and it seemed like he was unfortunately hit by 2 arrows. Not long after, his lips turned purple and his complexion turned black. It was obvious that he had been poisoned by the toad. Ha ha! This little idiot is really stupid. For someone else, he dared to enter the dark night forest alone. The toads in the swamp are very powerful. Even the old man is somewhat afraid of them. He actually dared to barge in openly. He really doesn't know life from death. What an idiot! Yuan Tianzai was overjoyed to see Qin Hao being poisoned and suffering more and more injuries. Then, he slowly turned his head and looked at the young man trapped in a tree nearby. It was Yi Shuihan. Yi Shuihan was covered in wounds. The extent of his ruptured flesh was too horrible to look at. He no longer had his noble temperament and had been ravaged beyond recognition. His body was wrapped in a bunch of snake-like vines. These vines grew from the tree and were extremely poisonous. They could even suck blood. At this moment, the vines had pierced into his limbs and bones. They were greedily sucking Yi Shuihan's flesh and blood, then injecting poison into his body to numb his nerve. In other words, Yi Shuihan wouldn't be able to survive. You still want to save people? Not a chance. Today, I will have all of you die without a burial ground and accompany my entire family. Yuan Tianzai coldly snorted at Yi Shuihan. Before this, he didn't know that Yi Shuihan was the son of Dragon Abyss Great Emperor. It was only after Old Man Huang's son was seriously injured that he revealed the truth, hoping to scare Yuan Tianzai away. But who knew that this only made Yuan Tianzai even crazier? At first, he was worried that Qin Hao wouldn't come to this terrifying dark night forest for Yi Shuihan. But now, he firmly believed that Qin Hao would come. If he didn't, Yi Longyuan wouldn't let Qin Hao live. In fact, as expected, Qin Hao really did come. Yi Shuihan looked at Qin Hao in the yin-yang mirror, who was being attacked by a large number of poisonous toads. He let out an anxious whimper. He couldn't speak. A smelly sock was stuffed into his mouth. Seeing Qin Hao's injuries increasing in order to save him, Yi Shuihan was burning with anxiety and heartache. It's painful, isn't it? Compared to this old man's pain of having his sect exterminated, your pain is nothing. This is just the beginning. The best is yet to come. Yuan Tianzai patted his butt and stood up. He looked at the yin-yang mirror again and was surprised. At some point in time, the Qin Hao in the mirror had actually crossed the swamp. In that short moment of distraction, Yuan Tianzai didn't see what method he'd used. This surprised Yuan Tianzai a little, but it was to be expected. The poisonous toads in the swamp were roughly equivalent to a first-rank mortal saint. What was terrifying about them was their sheer numbers. From the information he'd gathered, Qin Hao was a fifth-rank mortal saint. It was inevitable that he'd make it through. However, it was a pity that passing through this stage seemed to be Qin Hao's limit. Yuan Tianzai could already see that Qin Hao's body was swollen. This meant that the poison was too deep. It's time to harvest. Putting away the mirror, Yuan Tianzai let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that Qin Hao didn't have any trump cards. He was just a trash mortal saint. Then, the slaughter would officially begin. At this moment, he cut off the vines on the tree and dragged Yi Shuihan forward as if he was leading a dog. There was a cruel smile on his face. At the edge of the swamp, Qin Hao's entire body was covered in mud. He appeared to be in a sorry state as he lay on the ground, panting heavily. If it weren't for the fact that my body isn't ordinary, even a profound sage would be crippled after being shot so many times by the poisonous toads. He sighed at the strength of the poisonous toads. The Forest of Darkness was much more dangerous than the inner area of the explosive flame mountain range. Qin Hao picked up the purple meteorite sword and staggered to his feet. After making it through the swamp, he'd killed more than 1,000 poisonous toads. It wasn't surprising that Yuan Tianzai was shocked. After all, that was equivalent to killing more than 1,000 low-level mortal saints. When Qin Hao got up, his eyes inadvertently glanced at a pile of grass. He sensed that there was a tiny spirit formation core hidden in the grass. In fact, along the way, Qin Hao had discovered many spirit array cores. These things had the effect of surveillance. It wasn't hard to guess that Yuan Tianzai had left them behind to observe Qin Hao's movements and his true cultivation. Qin Hao had beaten Yuan Tianzai at his own game. He'd purposely followed the spirit array cores hidden in the darkness so that he could find Yuan Tianzai. At this moment, he felt that the two weak auras were gradually approaching. It seemed that the enemy was right in front of him. Chapter 6:11. Yi Xuehan shook his head in grief and indignation, his face streaked with tears of humiliation. In order to save him, his boss had ventured into tenebrous forest alone, leaving him covered in wounds and humiliated by Yuan Tianzai. This was a great humiliation for a man. If it were Yi Xuehan himself, he wouldn't be able to live anymore. Actually, I should have you cripple your dantian first, then cut off your limbs. However, this old man must personally cut off your limbs and cripple your dantian. Only then will I be able to vent my hatred. Immediately take off your clothes. Yuan Tianzai ordered through clenched teeth as Qin Hao took off his white robes. Qin Hao then took off his shirt, revealing his well-built body. His muscles were clearly visible, and his Apollo's belt was visible. Pants, take off your pants too. Yuan Tianzai ordered again, his tone brimming with jealousy. A young man's figure was truly amazing. In response, Qin Hao took off his pants as well. Take off your pants too. If you don't, I'll crush him. Yuan Tianzai was afraid that Yi Xuehan might have a weapon hidden in his pants, so he lifted Yi Xuehan up and choked him by the neck. Yi Xuehan was almost out of breath. Are you sure you want me to take off my pants? This time, Qin Hao didn't take them off. Cut the crap. Old man told you to take them off, so take them off for me. Yuan Tianzai raised his nose. Fine, but don't regret it. After he finished speaking, Qin Hao took off his last concealment item and stood naked in front of the other party. His performance was magnanimous and arrogant. Fuck! Yuan Tianzai's gaze fell on Qin Hao, his eyes filled with shock and shame. I didn't think that you'd be so well endowed. Old man has underestimated you. In all honesty, Yuan Tianzai was both ashamed of his inferiority and envious. Now, throw your sword and spatial ring over. Yuan Tianzai continued to give orders. He was already certain that Qin Hao had no hidden weapons on him. Qin Hao stood there like a little lamb, weak and powerless. Alas! Seeing Yuan Tianzai's pig-like behavior, Qin Hao shook his head and took off his spatial ring, tossing it along with the purple meteorite sword. This was not an ordinary spatial ring, but a divine weapon transformed from the great void divine cauldron. However, Qin Hao was not worried at all. In the hands of Yuan Tianzai, the great void cauldron would not be of any use. After all, he needed the immortal samsara incantation to activate the great void cauldron. Woo-woo, the moment Qin Hao removed the interspatial ring, Yi Xuehan started to struggle violently. He knew that without the spatial ring, Qin Hao no longer had anything to rely on. He was like a fish on a chopping board. Ahahaha! You are so stupid! Yuan Tianzai laughed without restraint. He tossed Yi Xuehan aside like he was trash and took the purple meteorite sword and the spatial ring. Then, he flicked the body of the sword, making a ding sound. His eyes shone with admiration. Good sword, he exclaimed excitedly. The sword's material could be classified as a low-grade holy weapon, and it seemed to have the potential to be upgraded. It was an extremely rare and valuable treasure. After praising the treasured sword, he probed the spatial ring with his mind. Then, he was stunned. Following that, his body trembled violently. You actually have so many treasures. This is an entire set of saint equipment. His voice trembled, as if he were about to cry. He took out his holy war suit as he spoke. Qin Hao had taken the holy war suit from Deguji. There was the holy war divine sword, holy war bracers, holy war knee pads, holy war boots, holy war treasured armor, cape, and even a helmet. I've never seen such good equipment in my life. Now that I can wear it, I can die with no regrets. Yuan Tianzai raised his head and wept. He was so excited that tears flowed down his cheeks. He was like a beggar who had picked up clothes thrown away by a rich family. He was filled with joy. However, he didn't wear it. Instead, he continued to check the spatial ring. This is the Yuan burst pill. Boom! Yuan Tianzai was shocked. He knew the effect of this pill. After taking it, one could erupt with a cultivation of a whole realm for 15 minutes. As a 5th-rank profound sage, he could erupt with the cultivation of a 5th-rank heavenly sage. This pill was priceless. It was priceless. I've never seen such a high-quality pill in my life. It's actually a peerless Yuan burst pill. I can die with no regrets. Yuan Tianzai looked up to the sky and wept. Qin Hao looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. Yi Shuihan, on the other hand, was extremely heartbroken. He blamed himself even more and was filled with guilt. If not for him, Qin Hao wouldn't have lost so many treasures. However, in the next moment, Qin Hao also lost his life. This is the Earth Overturning Seal. It's something that only a mid-rank elder of Dan Go can have. I'm rich. Not only can I die with no regrets, but I can also die with a smile on my face. It's worth it even if I'm chopped into pieces and fed to the dogs. Following a loud cry, Yuan Tianzai found the Earth Overturning Seal. Dan Go was a peak existence in the western Liang continent. The Earth Overturning Seal it produced was a treasure among treasures. Apart from being used as a weapon, it also symbolized the user's noble status. Continue. There's more inside, Qin Hao crossed his arms and said casually. His expression was as if he was mocking Yuan Tianzai. Old man, I won't continue watching. If I do, I might die from excitement. Therefore, I've decided to kill you right now to avenge my grandson and son. First, I'll cripple your dantian. Yuan Tianzai's expression changed. Suddenly, he fiercely attacked, not giving anyone time to react. His palm was wrapped in vigorous profound Saint Origin Qi, and it smashed towards Qin Hao like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Seeing this scene, Yi Shuihan crazily rolled on the ground. He couldn't bear to see his boss being killed by Yuan Tianzai. However, it seemed that no one could stop this tragedy from happening. Bang! This palm ruthlessly smashed onto Qin Hao's body. It was hard to block. The ground shook, and a layer of spider webs appeared on the ground where Qin Hao was standing. Moreover, smoke and dust rose. However, there was no scream, and Qin Hao wasn't sent flying out of the smoke and dust. Thump! Yuan Tianzai's heart skipped a beat. What's going on? His palm had clearly hit something, and he hadn't missed. Is this all you've got? You're really useless. As the smoke and dust settled, Qin Hao calmly appeared. One of his hands was behind his back, while the other had collided with Yuan Tianzai's palm. His expression was relaxed, and he wasn't injured at all. How is this possible? Yuan Tianzai was shocked at first. His eyes widened, and then he felt that something was wrong. He immediately retreated and pointed at Qin Hao in disbelief. Weren't you poisoned? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.